Alrighty, there we go. We made it here. Literally seconds from me starting, sprinting through to get here. It's just me today. Hi, Flex, Chrono, Felix here. I've been a little unwell. We were going to start the anime today, but since we can't do that because of sickness and safely quarantining oneself away, I'm here by myself to run through the fragments, see if I can remember the right order. I want to try like screw it up as much as possible. I don't know if there's anything like extra if you do things in the wrong order, but I just wanted to kind of like go through it, talk a little bit about this stretch of the story, because I feel like we didn't go over it as much, and there's definitely a few things we missed from the different recaps. So it's just gonna be kind of a chill hangout to satiate you and the algorithm while we wait for myself to get better and for us to actually have the next stretch of the anime to show you here on the channel. I'm very much looking forward to getting it. We spent a lot of time discussing whether or not we wanted to go straight to Go, or whether we wanted to do the Dean anime. But I think the plan is, as we said in the last recap, we're going to do the Dean anime and then do Go, and was it Satsuo was the one after Go? And then hopefully Higurashi will be out sometime by then. So welcome to the world of Higurashi Chapter 8, Matsuri Bayashi. In this world, you'll be able to recreate the story from Hanyu's point of view. Your objective is to create the June of 1983 ideal to you. You'll need to collect many different fragments to make that possible. However, Takano's conviction is very strong. To overturn it, you'll need a lot of effort and a lot of fragments. I'll warn you right now, it'll be a slow and painful process. Do I have stream delay turned on? That came through pretty late. No, added delay. I've got low latency on. Hanyu went through it for over 100 years, and she even had to stop and give in to fate. Now, I did want to kind of just talk about the, I'm not going to say anything fucking revelatory right here, because, I'm just kind of chilling, hanging out. But the more I've kind of gone back over this and editing, the idea of like 100 years seems kind of fun, because it's like, it's a normal human lifetime of experiences, really speaking, like 100 years. So the fact that it's just over 100 years feels like a kind of quiet way of saying that like it is just out of the ordinary, rather than being like, thousands of years. It seems like a pretty explicit choice. Defeating Takano's conviction will not be easy. The trial in this world will put you through as much pain as Hanyu had to endure. You may surrender just like Hanyu did after being emotionally worn down by the constant repetition of the worlds woven by countless fragments. Well, that's good to know. My mute button starts skipping text. God damn it. But if you do, where are we? When you feel like surrendering, you can end this game at any time, but if you do, the worlds revolving around your friend's fate will be limited to Onikakushi through Minagoroshi. By forgetting about this world and uninstalling this product, you'll finally accept death, just like Rika did, and today we will accept death by uninstalling through sheer frustration. Your ideal June 1983 can be created by putting together 50 fragments that are scattered all over this world. Connect these fragments together, you will need the right ones. There are 50 of them, which may be dizzying. 50 is a dizzy number. However, this world isn't that merciless. To ease your pain, there'll be a little help for you. When you choose the wrong pieces, your only ally here will give you a sign that it's not yet time to put those fragments together. As long as the sign remains, you won't be able to connect them. You might as well go look for different ones. After you put other fragments together, you might be able to connect the ones you couldn't put together earlier. When that happens, she'll let you know. Let's put those fragments together, then you'll be able to join the other ones too. When you connect all 50, they'll become one big fragment. This is live, Catcher. Hello. Welcome to me being unwell. When you connect all 50, they'll become one big fragment, then you'll find your ideal June 1983. That's when the long-awaited Matsuri Bayashi will begin. Also, that means if you want to ask any questions, if you have anything you just want to chat about, how you thought the series went, anything you thought we didn't discuss in the recaps, like, for example, Okanogi and the sheer absence of his presence in our discussion from the recaps, just drop it in chat. I'm here to answer. Not sure if Ben's going to be joining us today. He's a busy boy with serious things to do. But we can't be together in person because I wouldn't want to get the poor boy sick. Before you peek at each fragment, why don't you line up all 50 of them first? Most of them require other fragments, so there are only a few you can actually look at. Let's try to find those first. To see the conditions for connecting fragments, just point the cursor at them. Before anything else, let's find the ones you can look at without any conditions. Blah, 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 blah. If you do believe in miracles the same way your friends do, even if you don't live in the world where they live, if you believe in them, welcome. Welcome to the world of Higurashi. Well, getting deja vu here. How would I rank the arcs of Higurashi? I don't know. I think I'd probably say that 6 was like my favorite in terms of how I engaged with the story. I actually really enjoyed 8 as well. I think that was a very kind of cathartic experience for reasons I discussed during the playthrough. But I guess we'll see. I am just going to be skipping text while I'm answering questions because like we have read through this before on the show, so you can always go back if you want to hear us talk shit over it. I don't know. I don't really enjoy kind of ranking them a lot because it very much changes with the mood of the wins. But I think Sumi Horoboshi is definitely the strongest. Even 100 dice all rolled ones, there wouldn't be a chance to defeat her. That's sounds like someone's rigged some dice. Her back is being at the center of national authority. Favorite characters? Oh my goodness. Uishi, and Uishi. That's an easy one. That I'm okay with ranking. In other words, a miracle is the only way forward. A miracle happens only when everyone combines their strengths. And you are one of them. I'm one of them? Oh my goodness. If you're planning to take a break from VNs, continue only book reviews, or do you plan to play a new game? We're going to be doing some games for Death of the Reader. Obra Dinn's next. We were going to do that last Friday, but life got in the way. I don't actually know what got in the way, but it was Ben's life that got in the way that time. Are you ready? I'm more than ready. The key to a long journey is not to pressure yourself too hard. Well, let's take it at a light pace. I'll work while drinking my usual wine. Favorite Umineko arc? Oh god. That's a hard question. Favorite Umineko arc? I don't know. It's always like, I look back on particular moments with Umineko rather than like the arcs as a whole, because there's so much in each arc that's like really weak, but in the end it all pays off, and that's the thing I like most about it. No, I will not marry you, sorry. But to continue answering the... Oh, here we go. To continue answering the question about playing more VNs and stuff, I don't know. We're going to do the anime stuff. We'll do Higurashi a bit. The thing with visual novels is just that they take a lot of time to like produce each episode unless we're doing it live like this. And we, I mean, we could do them live, but at the same time, we prefer having like a filter on it just because it's a lot of stress to manage an enormous amount of text. You know, all of the lines we have to do, a personal filter, and everything. How fucking long was Umineko? It was too long. It was too long. Alrighty, so I'm just having a look here at the moment. Trying to see... So we can go Sadashi. We're very explicitly trying not to go through the order to get the like bonus ending. I'm trying to see how much we can mess up. I guess the first thing that I never tried was just clicking on one that we actually can't do. Let's just do that. It just gives me a flat wall of text, doesn't even give me a scene. Oh, there we go, that's interesting. So like shatters it. This actually doesn't seem like it would be as difficult as that intro screen was making it out to be, or as difficult as Ben made it out to be. How long ago was Umineko? We're coming up. I think it was April or May 2017 we recorded the first episode, so even though the show launched in July, it's pretty much been 4 years for us. When I asked Rika-chan, she said Sadako might have possibly gone up to the mountain behind the shrine. She's fond of going up there. The mountain is covered with trees, vines, fallen logs, and she really likes the area. Any child would dream of having a secret base. What was your secret base? Tell us in chat, or tell us in the comments if you're watching the backup of this. I want to know. I want to know where your secret base was as a child. I used to have a park that I went down to and, you know, climb up in all the trees there, the nice and big, wide branch trees. You could get up pretty high. Any child would dream of having a secret base, and to Sadako, her secret base is the whole mountain. What a greedy guts. Whew. Okay, just gotta hold in the sneeze. Hold in the sneeze. However, the mountain is well undeveloped territory, making them a dangerous place that was easy to get lost in. It's in the school bathrooms a lot for some reason, pretty late. Yeah, I mean, it's not like the coolest space, but I mean, you know, it's the kind of base where you can get some good quiet time. Pillow forts, yes, vibe with the pillow forts. The mountains were underdeveloped territory, making them a dangerous place. It was easy to get lost in. As a brother, I'm a little concerned that she spends so much time on it, but maybe I should worry about getting myself lost since I rarely come here. Maybe I should have installed the voice patch before doing this. That probably would have been smart, because then I don't have to fucking read everything out myself. I guess it'd still be Japanese. No, we can't do it. We can't do it. OG sprites for life. The mountain gets dark pretty quickly when evening falls. If I still can't find her, I should look for her somewhere else. What was Ben's voice? It was like Samwise Gamgee, but slightly Canadian. Secret fort in a clearing in the forest, had a tree house, and oh my god, never had a tree house. Had a little like wooden shack in the back of my old house. I'm yelling as loud as I can, but in the woods my voice doesn't carry that well. How good is the voice patch for Higurashi, by the way? I've not actually tried it. According to Rika-chan, she has been making her secret base in this area. She goes up there alone to expand it. Alright, everyone, say it with me in chat. I've never heard Ryukashi repeat himself. What does she mean by expand it? If it's a secret base, she must not want anyone to find it. That's true. Does that mean she set up some traps? Considering that, I should have noticed the traps on the mountain before one got me. So, just take a moment to appreciate that the same traps that are being employed against her brother are the same ones that took down an entire military unit. Like, the idea that something that dangerous is just sitting out there waiting for Satoshi, and he just comical. It just comes off as comical. It's beautiful. The dichotomy of tone, whatever the proper linguistic word for it is. Classic. Suddenly my foot is sunk into the ground and snagged on something like a jump rope tied beneath the dried leaves. I heard some noise from up above, and then a big ball of branches fell right next to me. It had to be one of the playful traps Sadako loved. He's an amateur. He's never seen an adventure film. Mixed feelings on the voice patch. Umineko's is largely better. What makes Umineko's better? I just wonder. Because, like, Umineko's is pretty good. I have been very, very slowly rereading through that. It had to be one of the playful traps Sadako loved. If I wasn't so lucky, I'm sure the ball would have hit my head. It's a net trap. Oh my, look who's here. It's you, Nini. I think it's pretty good. Sadako, no, this kind of horseplay is dangerous. It is, it's very dangerous. What do you mean I'm so chill? It's wholesome. Your homemade voice patch is even better. Thank you so much. I appreciate it greatly. If you've just joined in, please be aware I am going to just be skipping over text as I answer questions. So do not treat this as a accurate read-through of the episode. Russian Jessica is canon, not just classic. As a brother, I should stop her from doing things like this, but when I see her brilliant smile, I can't say anything else. I haven't seen that smile in some time. By the way, Sadako, weren't you told to come home by evening since we're going out for dinner tonight? Which was your guys' favorite voice from the playthrough? I'd love to know, because I don't know. I definitely enjoyed doing Keiichi the most. Akasaka was fun to like revisit a voice I'd used from Umineko, but I don't know. There's just something so great about getting to vibe Keiichi's insanity. That's true, actually. Of both of our voices, Uishi, definitely the best. He complained I got him the wrong brand of cigarettes, then slapped my face saying I shouldn't be a picky eater, and then, oh no. Sadako, no! Enjoyed my Ava voice? I don't remember that from Higurashi, but I did enjoy that voice once I kind of figured out how to deliver it in a way that wasn't just fucking satire of itself. The console sprites, yeah, I mean, the console sprites for Higurashi, I actually really like them. Even though I'm a big proponent of the OG sprites, I still really like the updated ones. They have a very gentle. My favorite voice to do, definitely Keiichi. Ever since Sadako was very, it's true that our current stepfather doesn't have any experience being a parent, so he sometimes gets rather upset with her. But ever since the incident where Sadako called the child abuse hotline, our stepfather regretted his mistakes and tried his best to communicate with her. Umaneko's theme sprites are whack. I still look fondly on them because they have some great ones in there. But it definitely is like a bizarre mix of the like updated look and the original facial expressions. They got some of the best expressions, but like the super wide shoulders and stuff, goodness me. Trying to make people listen to early Umaneko videos is the epitome of it gets better, I swear. Does it really get better though? Does it really? It's the kind of thing the novel gets better and we kind of, you know, play catch up to the novel getting a bit better. There's some good ones, but then there's Kyrie. Oh god, yeah, you're quite right. That's, whew. Sadako, our current stepfather, is getting nicer. He wants to make up with you. That's news to me. That's because every time he tries to say something, you run away. It's interesting because when I kind of reread this section here, looking at like Sadako and her relationship with their stepfather before the second incident, the second disappearance, then it reminds me of like the discussions of identity and the way people present themselves through both novels. Like, you know, maybe Sadako actually was just having a hard time trusting someone who was trustworthy, or maybe they actually were trying to repair themselves. We can never kind of know in the way that Ryukishi frames it, so that we intentionally can't know, is really interesting, because I feel like it draws you as an audience to take a side without really having the possibility to understand. Do you ever watch other people play through when they cry games? I like to kind of keep up with people who are doing new playthroughs just so I can, you know, support them. Like, the last one I watched the most of was, oh my goodness. Having a mental blank. LHC, that's right, Large Hadron Collider. I stuck around and watched the end of their Umaneko playthrough, which was really fun. Got to sit there and re-experience the end. But I don't know, I'm not super big into revisiting the stuff just because it's like too recent for me. Oh yeah, Rose Matter I've been seeing a bit as well. Rose Matter was kind of going at the same time as us through Higurashi, so I've just been occasionally popping in and, you know, seeing what happens there. Kind of surprises me how big of an audience Rose Matter has for just doing visual novels. Like, there's not many people that I can think of who just do what Rose Matter does that have that big of an audience. So that's really cool. Reading 428. I don't know what 428 is. Alright, so we've got this fragment is required first. Haven't got the conflict. Let's just do all of the first one first. Do you plan to watch Go or just watch Kai? We're gonna do both. We're gonna do Kai first though. The plan is to go through Kai, Go, and Sotsu in time for the release of Sotsu. Roseman is pretty chill. Sabata is really great. I love his energy. Hopefully, he can get something going with Sabata. He's been sliding in my Discord DMs. Don't want to hear your excuses. We want to know when you'll stop the construction. Oh my goodness. The thing I like about this particular discussion here, talking about, you know, the dam construction. Also, sorry for the incessant sound of what seems to be a vacuum cleaner elsewhere in the building. Oh goodness. The thing I like about this discussion here in particular is the way that it frames this regional small town conflict. Is that still coming through the mic? I'm so sorry for the vacuum cleaner noise here. Let me, oh, goodness. I like that it frames this conflict as being a very regional small town versus the city thing, whereas really you actually do get these kind of debates and discussions within cities, like just with regular road projects, and the kind of contrast that we have with the Sonozaki family when they start talking about how there was a road being built through the town and they were trying to build up tourism through here. You're trying to suck you up. Yeah, dude, vacuuming during the town hall meeting, it's immersive. Yeah. Just realized you were watching too many Umineko playthroughs when you got to Sabata. Understandable, understandable. But yeah, like, the fact that this is delivered alongside, or at least relatively close to the information about the Sonozaki family and their kind of investment in local tourism is really interesting, because it's kind of two forms of money coming to the area. One that'll kind of replace it, and one that'll, in theory, sustain it, but also replace some of the ideals. Let me just quickly, I'm just gonna, let's just pause that. I'm gonna flash it over here. And hopefully I can fix this. Realize that's going to have two bits of music playing over the top of each other. I'm terribly sorry about that. Let's go. Such emotions are very painful, sad, and difficult to endure. I can clearly see the villagers who live alongside us turning into demons. Understand the rules of the human world. The power of an individual can't be compared to the power of government. To be able to fight, an individual needs to become a part of a larger, unified power. So yeah, I appreciate you guys going through both Higurashi and Umineko. Because of your playthrough, it's given me a chance to experience really amazing stories. Major thanks. Why, thank you. 26 ETF. Appreciate you following through. The cycle of anger leads to more anger. It's just like being a demon. I do like how the goalpost as well of being a demon moves around in the story. It's kind of fun. We, you know, have all of these different ideas of what a demon is, and I don't know, I'd be interested on, I guess, what you guys in chat think about it, because so much of what we, I guess, in the West experience of Japanese spirituality is displays that don't really have a particular analog, and I feel like demons are a similar idea. I was just watching through Howl's Moving Castle the other night, and it was really interesting seeing like the way that they portrayed Calcifer, one of the characters in that story, and the way that he's presented as this demon, but he's really just like, I guess, a fire spirit. Maybe it is actually translated as, I don't actually know what the original Japanese says. I've not watched Howl's Moving Castle since it came out until a few days ago. It's a very pretty film. Do you know who you're talking to? It's Oreo-san. You've got some nerve, huh? The hell do you think you are? Shut up, Sonozaki. So what? I'm Hojo. Get your goons away from me. Hey, Hojo. How dare you say that you want the village to be submerged? That's not what Hojo said. How much are they paying you? Right, hot question. If you were about to have your local area replaced over by construction, be it a new road, be it a dam submerging your town, would you accept the terms? Would you accept the money? I was thinking about this when we were reading through it. I kind of expect in an area like where I live, at some point it will just become a road. You just gotta kind of prepare yourself for that. But it's kind of harder to say if you like live a bit more regionally and you're used to the peaceful life of a quiet town. I'm poor and have 2 kids at home. I was planning to start a new life by leaving here in peace after getting compensation from the government and finding a job elsewhere. Definitely depends on how much money, huh? Yeah, I mean, it'd have to. That's kind of one of the difficult things with that, is how much money is it worth? Like, if you could just... Let's just say it was enough money to afford a place with exactly the same floor space as your current house. That's the bit there. How dare you betray us? Then get out of this village. Be happy to. You're gonna pay what I'm entitled to, right? You're gonna pay me for every yen of the compensation I was going to get from the government. Even if I wanted to leave the village, I don't have the money. If you're gonna pay me, I'll leave straight away. It's interesting, like, we have this moment here where the Hojo family's talking about how they're like poor or whatever, but then we also have the whole scene in Arc 7 where Teppei is trying to get the bank book. There's like an interesting contradiction there. So how poor are they really? Enough money to move for Hinamizawa 10 miles down the road like they did with Springfield in The Simpsons. Train station and a bus stop, yeah, it's a good... I don't know where I'd move if I had to leave. I mean, I do know where I was going to move, but that was a matter of choice rather than being forced out. Shut up, government dog. Are you trying to divide the village? Hold your breath and suffocate to death. Screw you, old hag. Oh no, don't talk to Oreo like that. I'll murder your ass. Oh goodness, foreshadowing. Step up front, you damn hag. Hey, stay out of this, you fat pig. Very good. That was very good, Hojo. I haven't been this pissed off in so long. You'll get what you deserve. Look forward to it. I do wonder, I feel, I don't know much about Japanese linguistically, but as far as I understand, like, it's more formal of a language in some ways in terms of, like, the literal translations. So when you get the, like, slang-sounding tone that they've given to Oreo, it could actually still be, like, just formal but menacing. I kind of wonder how the translation was done there. As much as I could just hit the language button and switch it. What is the language button on here? I don't even remember. Oh, Jesus, what was that? It was like the tiniest hiccup I've ever had. Time to drink some water. From this day onward, the Hojo family and the Sonozaki family will wage a feud against each other, and the Hojo family will become ostracized with the village. It's an interesting line here to talk about how it's like just the Sonozaki family and the Hojo family, because obviously it's framed through a lot of the story as being like the whole village versus the Hojo family. And, you know, obviously that comes from, like, the Sonozaki family's power and whatnot. But, you know, when we get into discussions and Keiichi in Arc 7 talking about how the rest of the village never really had an issue with them, you kind of wonder how, you know, how much strong-arming the Sonozaki family had to do to pull that off. My goodness, we're only 2 in and it's been like half an hour. I think it's time to, start speedrunning some of these, start to crunch through a little faster. How do I set my text speed? Is it the number buttons? Let me know in chat. So we got the first one first. Where are we? Let's go Jiro Tomataki. Less formal. I don't know why I know this, but I do. Where are we? Menu. Config. Where are we? Xbox, message speed. All the way up. Just do it in Japanese, just for fun. Oh no, it doesn't actually change the, it just changes how fast the text appears when you click. There's no, like, auto. Damn it. You monster. You monster. If you go to a rural Kyoto type area, you'll get less formal, but I don't know, yeah. I was, apparently, like, one of the interesting things to me is that when you're, like, learning Japanese, I know that, like, the pitch, for a lot of Eastern languages, is important to the way it's pronounced, but then also different regions in Japan have, like, different, pitch stresses that they do in the same words. And that's really interesting. Like, I can't think of a kind of equivalent that we have, in Australia, where something that is, like, I mean, I guess, you know, obviously there'd be, like, very strong dialects that do weird stuff that's hard to understand, even for native speakers. But for, like, I know bigger cities like Osaka have variations that make that difficult still. How many tones there are in other Chinese languages. It'd definitely be difficult to learn, but at the same time, I feel like it's a hurdle that once you're over it, it's not actually too bad to pick up once you're, like, used to listening for it. In the same way that, you know, when you hear someone speak English incorrectly, for example, you can hear a mistake that they make very easily. Once you kind of get used to the pitch idea, the tone idea, I don't think it'd be hard, don't get me wrong, but I think that there'd be, like, a threshold at which you just kind of click with it. I guess that is fluency. Communicating with the opposite sex is good for the brain. Thank you, Takano. Very wise. Tell me, friends, what communicating with the opposite sex have you done recently? Knowing your Chinese housemates with constant practice until I kind of sort of got the third tone. The other three were okay. That's cool. Nice work. Proud of you. Learning languages. I was talking in the Discord the other day. I feel like I should learn other languages so I can do more literature criticism, because so much of what I want to read is in other languages, like French, German, and Japanese particularly. Ugh, it's a headache. Learn about the avian photography that you're so intrigued by. I'm looking forward to joining you on the stroll next time you go. There was a pun that I feel like I noticed the other day with something to do with Toмотaki and looking after the mountain dogs. I guess he is a watchdog for the government. Oh god, it's terrible. Something to do with the bird photographer. What was the pun? Oh my god. Hardly wait to see them. They'll be nothing compared to yours. It'll be my first time doing it, you know. While she keeps her head cool and smiles, all I can do is blush and scratch my head. Am I being conceited? Yes. I can't help but think that Takano-san likes being with me. If it's mere flattery, I don't think she'd come along this far. Alright, tell me, friends in chat, do you think that Takano started this as a ruse and actually fell for him? Or do you think it was legit the whole way? Votes in chat. By the way, isn't this the first time we've been alone like this? Ooh. Yeah, you're right. Usually the director or some other research staff is around. I don't know anything about you. I don't know exactly what you do in Tokyo or what you've done in the past. I wonder what you do in the self-defense force. Votes for Ruse. We got a vote for Ruse in chat. I was an instructor for a while, but I hurt my eye when I was injured. I can live life normally, but they made a big deal out of it, and ever since all I do is desk work. I do like this line because of the scene we get later on with Tomitaki and the machine gun. You know, leaning out the car window and whatnot. Clearly he was injured in some combat exercises. Is there anything to suggest even a little at the end that she likes him? I would have said yes. I would have thought that the way... Well, the thing is I feel like with Takano, regardless of whether she, quote-unquote, actually likes Tomitaki, she's, like, isolated herself emotionally from people so much that she can't really experience, I guess, romance in an authentic way because she's so used to manipulating people. So that's kind of like the realization I feel Takano's meant to be having towards the end of this arc when she offers, when she has that discussion with, or has that discussion at Tomitaki when he's like tied underneath the desk during the operation once he's been captured. Acts sly and charming towards most people towards the beginning. Started as a ruse for sure, but later she cared for him because she does try to help him at times. Agreed, teary eyes. I think I back that. As I was saying, I think that she can't really properly be emotionally invested in it just because she's so used to manipulating people. But you know, this is all just the way we kind of perceive the story, not necessarily true. I'm glad to be able to see Hinamizawa through my viewfinder. Group trip to, oh my god, I've just forgotten the name of the town. What's the town that Ryukishi photographed for this? I don't know how much of an impression I made, but I think she is indeed interested in cameras. Pause for effect. I was expecting her to tease me like usual, so I'm a little surprised. Persistence and honesty that broke through. Oh, charming. What a charming man. I was about to look up where the town is, but I feel like you nerds are going to tell me anyway before I even get to it. Just need to focus and press the shutter. Did they have autofocus in the 70s, in the late 70s? You find his legend is smudged because it explains all the backgrounds being blurry. Since she seemed to show an interest in cameras, I wanted to take a walk around Hinamizawa and take some pictures of the scenery. But unfortunately, the rain wouldn't stop. But she was still having fun and kept taking pictures inside the bus stop. So the first set of pictures she ever took were of odd things in that dark little building. Since then, every time we'd meet, we ended up walking around the village with our cameras in our hands. I vibe with that, guys. Keep cameras on you. Actually, question while we load up the next scene. Shirakawa Go, that's the one. I remember it confused me a while back because Shirakawa and Shirakawa Go are in two, like, completely different locations. So I, like, Google Maps my way to Shirakawa and was like, hang on a minute, this doesn't look anything like it. Oh, that was a mistake. I shouldn't have spoken like that. My poor sore throat. Alright, what else have we got? Dam construction withdrawal, help from the Queen Carrier. Repetitive apologies. I just want to see, is this just going to give us the same fail text? Yeah, god damn it. I was kind of hoping that it'd actually, like, give us something when we messed up like this. Alrighty. Someone's replied to a comment. Let's go reply to this comment live on stream. Except I'm not going to put it on screen. Because I don't want to accidentally show you something you're not supposed to see. Umineko did change the way, I think, in particular with how I view religion. Ah, someone asked in what way. It gave me a more precise way to, or concise way to explain my opinion on religion. That's an interesting discussion. I never really spoke about it on the show, but actually while we were reading through Umineko, I spent a lot of time like with one of my friends' churches here in Sydney. And it was the first time I'd been involved in a church since I was like a fucking kid. So that was a very bizarre experience to be doing at the same time as Umineko. Probably a little sociopathic of me. Sadako Hojo, let's do this one. I wonder what Dr. Takano would have thought of what she ended up doing and how moral he actually was compared to her. It's true, like, we only get a view of Dr. Takano through the eyes of child Takano Jr. So, like, Hifumi, we only kind of really understand his research through her lens. And, like, in theory, when she's grown up, she'd be able to see through anything that was wrong with his research, in theory, given that she, you know, studied extensively. But at the same time, it's kind of, given how much we look towards the end of this story at the way the old generation needs to be blown out like a bad smell, maybe that's kind of more just an analogy there. When I asked her when she was married, she got angry. When I asked her after she got divorced, she cried. I don't understand the meaning of marriage, so I have no interest in drawing pictures of a bride in a wedding dress. I don't think I'll ever get married. I don't want to keep changing my child's last name. My teacher once asked if I like my brother. Least favorite Higurashi character, Oreo. Controversial, but I don't know. Oreo, just because I felt like her delivery was very poor compared to the aura that had been built up around it, and maybe that contrast was intentional, but I still think it would have been good to, like, I would have enjoyed it more if Oreo had felt as weighty as the story pretended she was going to be. I don't know. It's the kind of thing that if I was to ask Ryukashi about it and he told me he did it on purpose, I'd be like completely okay. And that'd be great. And I'd like it then, but just the way that it feels to me at the moment, all I felt was let down when I got to actual scenes that included her. Really like the detail of Sadako's surname changing all the time, so even the name we know her by from the start is a reminder of her horrible childhood for her. Yeah, it's really interesting, and especially when we look at the way Rena got to change her name there, but Sadako never does, like two different approaches to what's kind of a similar problem, where Rena has a name that has nothing to do, in as far as we know, with her mother, and she changes it because she doesn't want to be close to it, whereas Sadako has names that are directly tied with the people who hurt her, and she still kind of, like, you know, soldiers through it. Maybe that's true, because ever since Hojo became my father, my mother has been smiling. I haven't seen them get into a fight as I have seen happen just before a divorce. They have little arguments here and there, but those don't lead to a divorce, and they always make up. But I'm sure they'll get a divorce sooner or later. And it'll be the same old stuff with the family court, divorce settlements, and night flight and child support. I do find the night flight here interesting, because I guess we only ever really see Sadako in the village. We don't hear much about her life in other towns. When I was watching the time past, he kept mispronouncing Rena as Reina. Yeah. It's an interesting one with the English pronunciation. Also, the fact Tepe isn't even her biological father's brother. He's just the brother of the last dude her mother was with for a bit. It's a bit of a mess, isn't it? Everyone else in chat had clearly given up, so you just let the mispronunciation happen. Yeah. To my mother, remarriage is a very important job, so I can understand having children around will cause problems. That's such a vicious line. I love it. I think I finally understand the reason why I'm a nuisance to her. I asked my brother something else. Why are children hated by new fathers? Well, that's simple. That's because family members all have different roles. A mother's job is to love her children. A father's job is to love the mother. That means I'm a nuisance to both my mother and father. Oh, the orange text. Here we go. I'd actually forgotten this happened during this particular scene. It's kind of great, the way that this is written, so that this, like, cascade into the red text here. Gotta look down the cliff, and if no one... Oh, skipped. Father has become abnormally nice to me recently. Started to act that way ever since I made the fake call. I know for sure it's just a part of a plot to kill me. Like, you can... It's definitely orange on my screen. It's like... going red. I don't know. It's an orangey pink. Anyway. Point being, this, like, cascade here feels so well set up by the lines we had earlier about jobs and the roles and the stresses. So when we start getting into I'm a nuisance because it's their job to love me, it just hits real nice. I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. One thing I did want to mention in there, because of the discussion about Oreo and why she's my least favorite character. Blue light filter, everything is orange. I know that life. Talking about Oreo being my least favorite character, one thing that I've found really fun about Death of the Reader, the other show we do here on the channel, where we do like murder mystery crime fiction stuff, if you're unfamiliar, is that talking with authors is normally a really great way to understand things about a book that I didn't get. So for example, L.J. Owen's, oh my goodness, what was the name of the book? It's too much for me to remember at the moment. The headache is creeping back onto me. DOTR shill, absolutely. Every Sunday at 9 PM on 2SER. You know the drill. Where are we? The Great Divide by L.J. Owen. Like, that book, there was a whole bunch of stuff in it about abuse that I just didn't understand. And talking with LJ about it, and the way that she enunciated why she'd made those decisions, it was suddenly like, oh wow, I actually like what I read in hindsight so much more than I thought I did, because, you know, a lot of the stuff in The Great Divide is like comically horrible in terms of what happens to some of the characters in there. But when I was talking with LJ about it, she was saying that like a lot of the most horrible stuff there actually happened to the people she spoke to when researching the book. And that's like, that's crazy. Like, it's terrible, but it made a really big difference on like the reading that I'd done on that book, because suddenly all of this stuff that I was like, this is just ridiculous. Like this is so far-fetched, it's taking me out of the story, to find out that it was actually the truest part of the story. Like the bit that she'd not made up blew my mind. Excuse me, director. Here we go. Oh, Takano-san, thanks for your work. Was that good? Did I do a good Ben impression? We just received the rest of the test results from Tokyo. Here they are. Thank you. It's getting interesting, isn't it? Now the dude's vacuuming outside the clinic. I think he's L5 symptomatic or something. Yeah, I've got some people over cleaning the house at the moment. Yeah, I was surprised how well that voice came out, to be honest. Actually, while we're talking about asking authors questions, if you guys had to ask Ryukishi one question, what would it be? You had one question to ask the man about Higurashi, Umineko, Kikonia, anything he's done. I want to know what it is. When are you going to do a video where you just switch voice roles? I don't know, whenever this vacuum cleaner leaves. Been enjoying some murder stories on YouTube. I forget the YouTuber's name, but man, some stuff in real life is shocking. Yeah, true crime is really interesting like that, because I kind of dislike true crime in the way that it can glorify the personas of some like really fucked up people. And why I enjoy the like shroud of crime fiction, so that you can kind of like paint them as more of a villain rather than as this like mysterious, powerful individual that sometimes true crime does, especially with like serial killers. I don't know. Not to be like all moral panic on it, because I think true crime's still really great in terms of like understanding, you know, how some things work in terms of crimes and crime scene investigations. But I don't know. I just prefer the shield of crime fiction, because it provides a way for authors like Ryukishi here to, you know, the cause of the syndrome, yet we still can't find the factual evidence of the culprit microbe itself. Like the way that we can just put something like this through a filter where we can still get across the same thematic and the same idea, but paint it up to get the story across. It's really interesting. The same with The Great Divide, right? That story was so unabashedly horrible to what it did to its characters in a way that seemed really ridiculous. But then when you actually find out that it's based off true stories, then suddenly you're like, oh my god, that makes it so much more intense, and you have a stronger emotional connection to it because of the way that it ropes you in with its characters. And I think that's also one of the reasons I love Umineko so much, because by the time you get to the end and you're like, oh, holy crap, I have already learned the lesson. I didn't realize I was learning it all this time. I wouldn't really ask a question, just express my appreciation. What did you ask for conversation's sake? What do you mean, what did I ask? I would genuinely ask about why he repeats himself so much. Yeah, that'd be an interesting one. I do wonder how he'd answer that question. I don't feel it'd be like good interview fodder for anyone but an audience who already knows him. But it's like, you just have to know. Why won't you hire an editor, Ryukishi-san? Alrighty. What is inspiration for Umineko is, well, if you want to come over to Death of the Reader, we have been doing a crash course on all of the stories that Ryukishi was inspired by to make Umineko, including, and not limited to, the Decagon House Murders, the novel we've just started, the Tokyo Zodiac Murders by Soji Shimada, Non-Serial Murders, whose author I forget the name of. Like, when you actually start to take a look at Honkaku mystery novels, you will realize that Ryukishi is a fucking talentless hack. He has ripped off so much just directly from other authors. His skill is in ripping it off in a way that pays off so well. And that's not to like hate on the dude. It's amazing. It was very clear and very simple, yet it struck me with surprise. Exactly, that's just what I was thinking. Understood, let me prepare a world on the verge of death. I'm startled. Sometimes the phrase advancing medicine bore the whisper of the devil, tempting us to accept sacrifices. Did you guys remember the rant I did about the episode of Star Trek where Picard's just like, yeah, fuck it, let's just kill some people for medical research? It was a terrible episode, truly the worst. Don't worry about that. If they're dying anyway, we're just going to put them to sleep a little sooner. On paper, of course. Why did you break the illusion of the witch? Because the witch wanted to be seen. And without love, it could not be seen. Sometimes I wonder about the Death of the Reader fans who know nothing about Jug Manchesters when they cry backgrounds. Could you imagine? There's been a couple of interesting discussions we've had about that. The best is all of the interview guests we talk about Ryukishi with once we finish the interview. We've done that something like 15 times in a row now. I have another interview I'm doing tonight, actually, that's going to be coming up on this week's Death of the Reader, with an author who wrote a story about ghosts on an island where people go missing in the middle of the ocean. So safe to say that's going to have a post-interview discussion about unrelated visual novels. 16 times in a row. I should watch an interesting YouTuber sometimes. Which interesting YouTuber? What she's preparing for me now is exactly what I want. Who is the hypocrite? Not her. It's me. How can I say I'm different knowing what I've done in the past? You really got to love this in contrast to what happens in Arc 6 and Arc 7 with Keiichi. Because clearly this is, it's not him being a hypocrite, it's him experiencing personal growth. But your past can be so easily weaponized against you in a situation like this. Something, moral panic, cancel culture. But it's really interesting because, you know, he's being pressured to go back on the improvements he knows he's made on himself, and that's like such an interesting mental position that Ryukishi's written him into, which seems really dumb but also really authentic. And that's one thing that's difficult to do. It's hard to have like a dumb decision that's also very credible. Down the rabbit hole. I think I've heard about them. My current sink of time has been Tim Rogers, formerly of Kotaku. He did a 6-hour long... oh goodness. Can someone in chat tell Epica that she's not live if she only just heard Irie's voice live on the air? Epica, you might want to refresh the page. That was a while ago. But Tim Rogers did a 6-hour video on Tokimeki Memorial, which is like one of the early Japanese dating sims, at least as according to him in the video. And I never thought I could watch a 6-hour video about a fucking dating sim that hasn't been translated into English. And I was very surprised when I got to the end of that. What is the story you've been most disappointed by? That's an interesting one. Let me scroll back through my library here. Probably opening night at the Vulcan. Like, don't get me wrong, I still really enjoyed that story. It's not because the story's bad, but just because coming from something... oh. Sophilautia. I know that name. Welcome. Good to have you here. But the opening night, or Night at the Vulcan by Nio Marsh, it was a very interesting story that did some really cool stuff, and obviously has some like super important historical stuff. But coming to it from Stella Duffy's reimagining of Money in the Morgue meant that it just kind of paled in comparison because of how good of a job Stella Duffy did with the text of Money in the Morgue. Like, you know, it's still obviously a super important novel in terms of what it did, but just the way that Roderick Allen just isn't a character in that story, and the mystery is kind of a little farcical, and a lot of the stuff I really enjoyed from Money in the Morgue was the stuff that was put on the back foot in Night at the Vulcan. I don't know. There's been a few books that I've been disappointed on, but I tend not to like share the stuff that I get disappointed by because I wouldn't want to, essentially like hate on authors who are probably just going through a learning experience, and B, like, you know, just because a novel's for me doesn't mean that it isn't for someone else, and I wouldn't want my... Like, I tend to try and only feature things that I'm positively critical of. Like, another one was Anne Chapman's A Kind of Catharsis. There was a really interesting moment in that book where, like, a character who was meant to be a doctor said something that medically made absolutely no sense, and it was staggeringly obvious, and I was really frustrated by that. But at the same time, I wouldn't feature that or speak with Anne Chapman herself about that because I thought that, I'd like mention it to Anne, and I was like, oh, that was kind of interesting to me. I wouldn't have used that as a plot device, but I didn't put that in the interview because I don't know. I just feel like positive criticism, even though a lot of my criticism tends to be negative, I tend to be negatively critical of the things that I really like. Jugmack could just read Dating Sims when. I mean, listen, I do Tokimeki Memorial if I spoke Japanese. It's only in Japanese. No one's translated it. I don't even think I'd enjoy it that much. I just really fucking love Tim Rogers' video of it. Maybe I'll drop a link in the description once the stream's done. They didn't want the locals to take advantage of them by showing their willingness to compromise. However, that backfired horribly. As they had historical ties to the land, the government's actions only made their bonds stronger. Neither government nor the locals wanted to back down. People from Hinamizawa are rather hot-tempered, maybe because they're the descendants of demons. if you're joining us late today, we're just kind of reading and hanging out because I've been unwell. So we couldn't do the anime today, which was what we were originally planning on doing. So it's just me hanging out, reading through the fragments, seeing if I can piece them together, which is going a lot slower than I thought it was. Not because I'm doing poorly, but just because these scenes are a lot longer than I remember. So if you have any questions, anything you want to ask about, anything that we didn't discuss in the recaps you wanted to hear, drop it in chat and I'll definitely ask it. I definitely rambled for a bit about the story that I've been most disappointed by. But that's the kind of thing that I'd normally kind of put down some dot points if I was going to talk about it on the show. Honestly, with the memes about Ryukishi repeating himself, I've realized I probably also have the same problems in my own writing. Good thing I don't write. Yes, you do. Even if it's trash fan fiction, you still write. Ugh. Where are we? Sometimes I have to listen to my patients go on and out about their opinion on the damn construction plan. Poor you. Isn't bedside manner the worst? Why do you even listen to them? You're too nice. I have to. I'm a clinic director first and a research center director second. How long will you not able to be in the studio because of COVID? We chose to take pretty much the entire year out, like from March to December for Death of the Reader. Even though we could have sooner, but just because we wanted to be cautious and because I have family members that work in healthcare. So we were out for about 9 months, but we could have been back in sooner. We finished Higurashi. Is there anything you think Ben should have told you about it at the start of during Umineko that he didn't? That's actually a very interesting question. The short answer is no. I think that what he told me at the start of Higurashi and Umineko, like all the way back at the start, was that Umineko was about love and Higurashi was about friendship. And I think that was like kind of all the information I needed. Obviously there's some stuff during Umineko that he spoiled, but that was what got me to read the story in the first place, so I can't complain about that, and you can listen to the Umineko playthrough if you want to know more about that. And I don't know. I knew, for example, that certain characters in Umineko were based off people from Higurashi, but I think in general, like, this was a story that I had no context for, that I kind of just had to experience, and doing Umineko, then the VN, then the anime was definitely like the best way for me personally to do that. Because I think the anime would have had me a bit disinterested, and I think that I would have been extremely disinterested if I hadn't done Umineko first. What is a story that destroyed your expectations in a positive way? Umineko definitely blew my fucking mind. Higurashi, I expected it to be really good, so it didn't kind of break my expectations, but I was surprised at what about it I enjoyed the most. What else? Let me look through. Inspector Imanishi Investigates by Seicho Matsumoto. We were going to do 10 to Sen, or Points and Lines by him, and it wasn't available unless I wanted to pay $1,000 for a hardback copy, so we did an Inspector Imanishi Investigates, which is called Castle of Sand in Japanese, I think. And that novel was a lot more fun than I was expecting, just based on the reviews. And Good Murder by Robert Gott is far and away the one that destroyed my expectations positively. Good Murder, I fucking hated that book until like 2/3 of the way through, and then it quickly became one of my favorites from last year. Chapter 3 of the book you're writing for Death of the Reader when? I'm probably going to drop 3, 4, and 5 at the same time sometime during our next book for Death of the Reader, so in about 3 weeks' time. I had to kind of put it on hold for a little bit. I mean, I've still been writing stuff, but just we had so many guests in queue for Death of the Reader that I had to push it back just so that we could fit everyone in. I mean, there's still a guest that I'm actually I've got on hold. Actually, I'll just tell you who it is. David Arrowsmith, who wrote Nevada Noir. He's an independent author who sent me a copy of his book. It was a fun read. He independently released it, so definitely go check it out and support the guy, because I appreciate him supporting us and sending us the book. But I've had to kind of push him back and back and back just because we've had so many people that we've wanted to feature on the show who are like more related to what we're talking about. But I will get David on soon. I don't want to keep blowing him back because I did actually really enjoy and appreciate him sending that novel through. It's like 3 short stories about kind of American desert noir, even though he's like a British television executive. Alrighty, where are we? Death of the Dam Site Manager. We're actually up to the part where we have to start picking what we need to do correctly. Live Specimen, Death of the Construction Site Manager, Opportunist, Third Year's Curse, Patient, Death of the Aunt. Oh my goodness. Wait, have we got enough for this one? I don't think we have. Oh no, we have. Sick. Let's go. That very night, the head of the Furude family, the priest, gathered his wife and Rika for a meeting or something. In Hinamizawa, it was tradition for the 3 families to gather to discuss the village's issues, so it was hardly unusual for big families like the Sonozaki family and the Kimiyoshi family to have meetings beforehand to sort out opportunities amongst themselves. However, the Furude family had lost its branch families, so there were only 3 of them left. So until that day, they had never had a family meeting at all. Off you go. There we go. What is it? You're being so formal. Is it about the dam construction? The dam was the most important issue in the village at the moment. The wife naturally assumed the priest wanted to talk about the dam. For him to gather all of them together like that, it must be a huge decision he had to make. Perhaps he was going to talk about joining the pro-evacuation camp. No, it's not about the dam. It's about something extremely important which concerns this village and perhaps all the ancestors of the village too. The Furude family had served in the priesthood of Oyashiro-sama, the guardian deity of the village, for generations, so for him, the head of the family, to start out that way, it must be something extremely important. Yet he said it wasn't about the dam, so what could he want to talk about? I married into this family, so I want you and Rika, who carry the true blood of the Furude family, to listen very carefully. You two aren't normal human beings. I'm the reincarnation of Oyashiro-sama, right? Rika, you shouldn't say such things. Dear, let's talk about things like that without her. She's heard enough nonsense from the elderly people at the village hall already. What she just said about her being the reincarnation of Oyashiro-sama, that appears to be true. What? It's rather a long story. Please just sit tight and listen to me. The wife had a dumbfounded expression on her face, not knowing what he was going to say, but Rika was completely relaxed, wearing her usual carefree expression. The priest started to talk after his wife calmed down. There is a disease in this village that has been here for many years. It's a special disease which only exists here in this area. Everyone who lives in this village has the disease. Not only the people who live here now, but all the people who ever lived here had the disease. What? Finished your Umineko playthrough not long ago. Just finished EP1 of Higurashi not long ago. Well, thank you. I hope you enjoy continuing to go through. It's always good seeing fresh faces kind of dive through. We're all perfectly healthy. I've never heard of a disease exclusive to this village. It's always really fun when people drop comments on like super old Umineko videos asking me questions about what I think, and I'm like, I don't remember. Have to actually like watch the episode to answer the question, especially if they don't time code it. Like, oh guys, if you're gonna leave a comment about something I said, please time code when I said it. A lot of you do. But it's nightmarish because like I have to watch a full hour video on like 3 times speed. Calm down. As long as we're here in the village, the disease won't cause any problems. But once you move away from this village, that's when it starts to act out. Do you understand? How can you expect me to understand such a thing? I have no idea what you're talking about. It's the same as the curse of Oyashiro-sama. Rika said it so calmly while her mother became frustrated. That's right. They say that when you leave this village, you're cursed. It's just like that. In other words, the curse of Oyashiro-sama, which our ancestors have feared for generations, is actually a disease that only exists in this village. I did want to talk about this. I'll put this back on auto while I talk about it, but I do like, and I don't think we talked enough about during the playthrough, how this really, thanks for joining us, Epica. How this and the disease and the way that it's like a curse that activates when you leave the village, really, like, it could just be a kind of language barrier or just any part of like living in a small town community, like once you're outside the community, you feel out of your depth. And like that could really be as like simple as this is, but people like dress it up in their minds. And you know, part of the, I guess, thesis of this story is that this curse, this disease actually does exist, in quotations. Shout out to whoever just closed the door loudly nearby. How the disease does exist, but at the same time, it really is just dressing up something that is totally normal inside the story to make it so much more significant. And I really like the way that it does that because of the themes of like unity and the local community. I think that's really fun. As I catch up with Death of the Reader, would you say it's worth me commenting, or are you likely to have forgotten basically everything in practice? It is absolutely worth commenting on Death of the Reader. I have extensive notes for every book for Death of the Reader. So I'm actually like more able to respond, but still please timestamp things if you're going to comment on particular moments. Because the other thing is like, you know, it's when I say that like I don't remember what happened in Umineko, it's more to say that like I don't remember how I felt at that particular moment. I still know what happened in the stories. So like if someone's like, oh, does this mean this in Umineko or Higurashi, then I can say yes, it does, or it does not mean this. But if someone's like, how did you feel about that? I don't remember how I felt about it, you know, 3 years ago. Convinced me to start listening to the Death of the Reader podcasts. Thank you. If you need to start anywhere because you're feeling out of your depth, start with The Devotion of Suspect X. I think is probably a good one to begin with, just because that's a really good book to read, and that's kind of the beginning of our crash course in Japanese fiction. Dynamic works regardless of what they're doing. I was trying to catch up just go months without time to read the damn books. I know. Reading is hard. I started Death of the Reader partially to get myself back to reading, because I used to read a lot, but I kind of ran out of time and passion for it because of school. But, you know, now that I've kind of forced myself to get back into it, I'm like 30 books in this year already, and I feel really great about that. How did you get into the radio stuff? I did media courses at university. My cousins did the same courses, and that kind of inspired me, I guess, to go into something similar. And then 2SER was like the radio station associated with the university I went to. It's co-owned by 2 universities here in Sydney. So it was easy for me to get involved, and then I've just been volunteering and working with them. So I do both volunteer and paid work at the station. And I've done some other work around the Australian radio industry as well, mainly with the Australian Radio Network, which is one of our biggest commercial networks here in Australia. But I don't know, it's just a career. To get back into reading, but Floating Admiral isn't gelling with me, and it's been on hold for like a year. If you're stuck on the Floating Admiral, I would listen to our The Master Key by Masako Togawa, particularly the 3rd episode where we speak with Caroline Crampton about her podcast, She Done It, because she has a really great take on the Floating Admiral that I think will kind of help you get through that. But you also can just skip over the Floating Admiral, because it is a terrible book, but it's like an important terrible book. Favorite restaurant in Sydney? Tough one. I don't actually eat out super often. If you're coming here like touristy, one of the 2 restaurants in Sydney Tower, well, it used to be Centrepoint Tower, I don't know what it's actually called now, but the tower in the middle of the city, one of the restaurants in there, just so you have the like spinning looking out over the city, is probably the best thing to do as a tourist. I do have a local favorite restaurant, because the guy that runs it is an absolute fucking hero. It's called Simply the Best. It's like Chinese, Australian Chinese and Vietnamese Vietnamese place. The guy who runs it is an absolute gun. If you ever get the chance to come It's like in Sydney's inner west. He is so happy and positive and great to talk to. You're an Australian. I thought you were funny voice Americans. Technically, I am a funny voiced American. But no, we are both in Sydney, Australia. Are you a good cook? According to my mother, no. According to me, maybe. According to my friends, yes. Gogoro doesn't have such large-scale equipment. If you can't believe what I just told you, you should go to the research center yourself and ask questions. They can explain it better than I can. What is the boundary of a good cook for you guys in chat? I want to know. Because, like, I can follow a recipe and make a good food and, you know, taste food and be like, this needs more of this. But at the same time, if someone was to just provide me a bunch of ingredients, I'd probably struggle to make anything more complicated than a good sandwich. Is Ben a good cook? I'd say Ben's probably about as skilled as me, but he's less adventurous. But I think that's also just because Ben tends to be a bit more frugal in terms of what he spends on food. Good is a very vague word. Exactly. That's why I'm asking you. That's back to the text. This Hinamizawa syndrome is caused by a type of parasite. What did I say that was rude just then? G-chan. You can't even see them with the naked eye. They say they're sort of a leader among these parasites. As long as it doesn't kill me, that's good in my book. That's the kind of attitude I can get behind, okay? Don't be picky with your food. Like, there's bad food, sure, but if it still feeds you, it doesn't kill you. It's doing its job. Passed down through the generations only by people with a direct bloodline to the Furude family. In other words, in the previous generation, it was you and now it's Rika. I do actually find this kind of interesting because I know that, like, the queen concept for a lot of small life, like ants and whatnot, is true, but I've never heard about it being real in, like, I guess a microscopic parasite. If you can follow a recipe and it tastes good, then it works for me. Heck yeah. No good in explaining things. Have the experts explain it to you. According to them, studying this parasite's leader is necessary in order to research the disease. No, I won't have anything to do with such suspicious research. Wise. And Rika won't either. Untrue. I'm telling you to calm down. Guys, don't tell people to calm down. Alright? Because it implies to them that they're panicked. And even if it is true, it doesn't work. I mean, listen, it's not to say that I'm not guilty of doing the exact thing, but just rarely works, okay? And you just gotta learn from your mistakes, okay? What is Magus doing right now? Let's ask him. Chat wants to know what you're up to. I've sent him a message. If you hit 1% of Gota's skill level, you're a good cook. Wow. I aspire. I aspire. Why did Rika just appear there? Good tips to de-escalate a situation. Anything I say is unprofessional and unsolicited aside from my personal experience in working with children. And my general experience in working with children is remove the opportunity for them to make noise. Either let them kind of vent themselves, like hear them out for a bit, and then, you know, ask a question that reframes things so that they have to kind of pause and think about it. Or, you know, separate them from the group. But that's just like working with kids in a sports coaching environment. Really, if you want actual advice on de-escalating a situation, seek someone more professional than myself. Ben says he has been accosted by his housemates. The Furude family will die right there, don't you see that? You need to think about our family. That's why the villagers call you an opportunist. After all, don't you think it's odd? The Ministry of Construction is trying to submerge the village. I suppose the, rather than saying remove the opportunity to move noise, just to try make the situation quiet. Like if you're both yelling, It's not. It's just not going to work. It's just not going to work. What in the world is going on? The Ministry of Health was warned that this disease could be triggered by a change in environments. They're actually trying to have the Ministry of Construction stop the damn construction plan. You really should go to the research center. Why would they build such a huge facility in a location that could be submerged? Rika let out a big yawn. It was long past bedtime for a little girl like her. I'm going to bed now. Dad, please let them know I'm willing to participate, okay? Oofed. Wrecked. Mum destroyed. You can't make such a decision without consulting me. Rika. Wait, Rika! What do you think that was like the first time through? What do you think happened? It is a very interesting scene, that one, you know, particularly when we get into the ideas of like Rika's dad being an opportunist, how he interacts with his own family there, and the way he approaches like trying to help the village. Can we do this one now, actually? No. Okay. We need to have him branded as an opportunist by the rest of the village. No, we need to... We can't do this one yet, I don't think, because... Oh, no, we can. Okay. Once had a dream that took place in Dracona's kitchen, and I sent Magus a diagram to see how accurate my subconscious was at constructing the layout of his house, and he said it was fairly similar. I mean, my kitchen is a box with benches on all sides. Like, I don't know how complex you need it to be. My old kitchen, though. My old kitchen was quite something. It had, like, a curved bench and a vaulted ceiling, making it sound way fancier than it was, but it definitely was one of the more atypical kitchens I've experienced. So much of this must have been wildly different when Rika was literally just the girl the first time through. If she and Hanyu had to be playing cutely in a specific spot to lure Keiichi's dad in, does that mean the first 20 loops didn't have Keiichi? That's, I don't know. I guess the story doesn't really address that. I suppose it's the kind of thing, where, like, much in the same way that, you know, we learn through coincidence and experience that it's entirely possible that they didn't really know that one event was associated with the other until they'd already done it. So, you know, it could have happened 1 or 2 loops, and it could have been part of the first loop, but they didn't understand. Yeah, it happens sometimes by chance. It's kind of difficult to say. When researching Hinamizawa syndrome, there's something very important that needs to be discussed first. If something happens to the queen carrier, the village will collapse. In his article, my grandfather called it the most dangerous situation. According to my grandfather, if the queen carrier dies, all the infected persons will go terminal within 48 hours. This may sound unbelievable at first, but research on the collapse of past local religions and group suicides around the world should indicate that there's some truth to it. Among all the mysterious incidents around the world, there are some that were caused by parasites controlling entire communities, very similar to Hinamizawa syndrome. Grandfather picked a few cases that are very similar to the syndrome and investigated them. As a result, he confirmed multiple cases of entire communities losing their minds after the death of a religious leader or founder, and finally annihilating themselves. He stated that on average it happened within 48 hours. It's clear that infected people are affected by the queen carrier, and the condition of the queen carrier is in fact affecting the entire village. Our statistics had already proved that on weeks Rika had felt sick and visited the clinics, we saw an exceptionally high number of visitors. Rika being sick with a simple cold had a massive impact. If something particularly bad happened with her, we'd be facing a serious situation within 48 hours. I do love this line, in that, like, essentially, it really could just be saying that Rika has enough contact with people that when she gets sick, the rest of the village gets sick by proxy, but like it's framed as a religious thing. It's kind of fun, especially in like the way that all of our brains are just more aware of the people around us being sick at the moment. If you watched any anime, what do you think your favorite is? I don't actually know. I've watched a bunch of anime. I have actually watched a lot of shows, but recently I went back and revisited a series that I remembered fondly from when I was younger, and it was fucking terrible. Like, I wish I hadn't gone back to watch it, because the version of it in my head was so much better than the actual show, and I'm kind of scared to go back and watch like other stuff that I've seen because of that, particularly in anime, because there's like a bunch of them that I enjoyed. Like I watched Angel Beats, Gundam 00, Breakblade, which was the one that was terrible when I went back to it. Fuck, what else was there? I watched a bunch with friends that I can't remember the name of right now. But, like, I don't know. Unless it has, like, a reputation for being particularly good, like Howl's Moving Castle, which, as I said, I just went back and rewatched a couple of nights ago. I don't know. I tend to avoid stuff that I experienced in that period of my life because I very much was just a media sponge. I consumed without, like, appreciating it at all. It was just kind of like noise to me. So there's, like, I don't know. I actually got into media criticism and, like, my approach on the stuff I watch very late, I think. So I've got, like, an entire shelf of books over here, like Chaos Walking. I have all 3 books. That's about to be... I think that film's already out. And I'm kind of scared to, like, reread those because I remember them really fondly, but I'm also concerned that they might just be trash because all I really remember about them is the premise. I also have The Secrets of the Immortal Nicholas Flamel. I really like that series, but I also remember that the ending was really terrible. Was it The Secrets of the Immortal Nicholas Flamel? I think it was. I've got 2 series here. The Septimus Heap series and the Nicholas Flamel series, and I can't remember which one was which. One of them ended really poorly. I think it was Nicholas Flamel. But I don't know. Like, on the one hand, it's really good going back to stuff that you liked when you were younger and finding out that it was really good, but it is the worst when you go back to it and it isn't quite what you remember. Because, like, Breakblade, I remember really loving that show, but going back to it now, it's just like, oh, the entire B-plot here is just so that we can see this girl almost naked. And the motivation for that is the creators were horny. Yay. I don't know. It's just not fun. It was hard hearing you 2 shit on Mortal Engines because those books were my favorites as a kid. Yeah, I mean, the film for that, I actually quite enjoyed the film. Like, it was extremely derivative and honestly a bad film, and some of the choices they made were really fucking peculiar. But, like, I don't know. I think the main thing with Mortal Engines was that it was a shame seeing Weta Workshop, a studio that has such a great history, producing something so mediocre. Studio Ghibli movies are kind of mid. I mean, that's understandable. They're very slow paced. Like, even Howl's Moving Castle just spends a lot of time, like, just showing off how nice it looks without actually doing much. It's almost like, I forget the term for it. There's a word for it. But I know, like, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood does the same stuff. Like, a lot of that's just following Sharon Tate around Los Angeles for, like, very little good reason unless you understand the history of what inspired the film. Which I didn't, really. I only kind of found it after... what's your favorite kind of tea to drink while reading mystery novels? I have, like, a... I don't know, I go through a lot of different teas. I just have, like, a cupboard of stuff that I've acquired that I work my way through. The only one that I have consistently is, like, a packaged pomegranate tea that's just easy and quick to make when I'm recording if I need anything. If I got more time, I'll spend a bit more tender love and care on it. Do you have a favorite novel or any strong contender? The Devotion of Suspect X is my favorite regular novel. That book really blew me away with what it did, and like, oh my goodness, Keigo Higashino is a wizard in terms of what he has done with the Detective Galileo series. There is some incredibly surprisingly clever stuff in there, and it still feels like mystery, even though it's very much a kind of thriller vein story. And that's so much fun. I love having an actual mystery that is solvable without it feeling really kind of clunky in the way that a lot of Golden Age stories do. Your sister is telling you about a kid nearly eating paint at a daycare today. That is not good for that child. Man, we missed that entire scene, but I gather that Takano was very satisfied and was looking forward to going to heaven. Which is fun. Takano and the relationship she has with heaven and gods in this story is such an incomplete thought, but it's incomplete in a way that's actually really satisfying. Because so much of the ideas of religion and reality and deity and deification get explored in Umineko. Burncastle's black tea with dried plums pretty good, or black tea in general. She has good taste. I've not tried black tea with dried plums. I really should. We should have done that for one of the recaps. Alright, what are we up to? 3rd year's curse, repetitive apologies. Have we had this one? I don't think we have. Oh. We're good. We're Gucci. As much as you appreciate the thirst people have for Takano, I only appreciated her towards the end during this last arc. I mean, that's kind of the way the story is designed. She's very much a cartoon character until we get to here. It was actually interesting, the current Marvel series, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, I was really disappointed in that they straight up just did death flags and killed a character, like, twice in one episode. Because it's so much fun actually getting to explore characters like here. Like, you know, Takano, I guess, kind of has death flags in a similar way. But we get to actually explore it, you know, because of the looping nature of it, and that's really fun. I don't know, flashbacks to explore character backstories, yay or nay? Tell me in chat. What versions of that have or have not worked for you? Because I feel like Takano worked for me, but it also worked for me because I'm kind of familiar with Ryukishi's writing style. I don't think it would have outside of a Ryukishi context. Manager, come on, say something, manager, you idiot. He's dead already. Oh no. Clang, a loud noise snapped everyone out of it. Someone dropped the shovel he was holding. The shovel was smeared with reddish black blood. No, not just the shovel. All 6 construction workers' clothes were blood-soaked too. One of them cried out to the silent dead body of the manager, which was drenched in blood. Manager, oh, shut up, he's already dead. It was self-defense, right? Self-defense. The fight had started after the manager yelled at them for drinking beer inside the office. There were no drinking and no smoking signs everywhere. The manager had scolded at anyone who broke that rule. So it was the 6 workers' fault for disobeying. But they drank because they were stressed out by anti-dam protesters. That's why they said things to provoke the manager. They told him to step out, and the others went along. The construction worker toiled hard and long hours. That's why they instigated the fight with the manager to release their stress. This is actually a really interesting example, because I think when you look at like the nationalist kind of rhetoric that Ryukishi explores just before we get to the fragments, it kind of reminds me of this, where these people like go so far and then are like, oh crap, we've made a mistake. Particularly in how the school of crime fiction that Ryukishi was inspired by was very responsive to the cultural zeitgeist of Japan in World War II. I kind of wonder if this comes from a similar place, in that, like, you know, spirituality and reactionary ideology, you know, caused a lot of problems for Japan in terms of what ended up happening during the war. But also, those problems only came about because they lost the war. And I am not enough of a World War II historian to comment any further than that. What do you think happened to Satoshi at the end of the story? I don't know, and I also don't particularly think that it matters, because the idea is intentionally that it's open-ended. I mean, that's kind of obvious. I assume at the end of the story, Satoshi does get cured, and then Satoshi goes on to live a life whether or not Shion is part of that life, I'll leave to the cat box. Just because I think that given the way the story ends very positively, I feel like it would be in the spirit of how Ryukishi ended things to actually let Satoshi live a normal life on the tail end of it. It's really fun how much they're sitting on the subtle, realer stuff like government and politics and child abuse protection. Yeah, I mean, that's one thing that's really fun with the Honkaku and Shin Honkaku schools in general, is that they are very responsive to real things going on in the world. So a lot of Honkaku authors, part of, and this is in the latest episode with Dr. Satomi Saito from Clemson University on Death of the Reader, we were talking about how Honkaku authors were very responsive to the idea that what was missing from Western mystery novels was a sense of spirituality. And Shin Honkaku kind of took that and made it self-aware and postmodern, which is a terrible thing to say. Don't do postmodernism. I jest, of course. But anyway, there's going to be an extended cut of that interview with Dr. Satomi Saito coming out on Death of the Reader's podcast. If you want to go subscribe to that, just look it up on your podcast apps, wherever you get your podcasts. So anything from Umineko that you would want to be answered and not left vague? I am personally very satisfied with the visual novel in terms of the way that things are vague, because I think that the thesis about storytelling that it creates is what's most important to me, just as an individual. Not to say that it is objectively the most important thing in the story, but that's just what I connected with the most. So I don't know, I'm pretty happy with what was left vague in Umineko and Higurashi for that matter. But I think if I was to answer that question in a not kind of just dodging the issue way, I would say that I would like the opportunity for answers to be there for people who don't want it to be vague, because I would hope that more people could appreciate that story rather than sitting on my self-righteous I understood everything even if you didn't kind of throne, you know? Like, it'd be good if more people could get along with the story than just idiots like me who read too much into fiction. I think Sadako Satoshi Ren in particular can't possibly be expected to go on and become normal, well-adjusted adults after everything. I suppose that is true, but what is a well-adjusted adult? You know, it's like, people are definitely haunted by their past in some ways, but you, yeah, that Catcher, that definitely is the manga, and that's why I still appreciate the manga even if I haven't touched it. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, people definitely are still haunted by and remember their pasts, but you know, saying that people can't grow past that, I think, is a little defeatist. You know, there definitely are people who overcome or learn to live with their traumas, and saying that people can't is kind of the same thing that, you know, people use to make excuses for not taking care of, like, veterans and stuff like that. You know, it's, oh, they're going to be haunted by PTSD for the rest of their days, so we might as well just not invest money into it because it's a black hole from which there is no return. Like, sure, maybe that's true, but that's, like, fucked up, right? People can live their lives even after going through trauma. Keiichi's dad and Irie in the adult role models, so normal, well-adjusted is definitely relative, you're right. Nice. Whole thing about government consulting Inamizawa about the dam in the village is not really seeing it as a good process or faith is, like, super relevant. Absolutely. You know, the national and local good being different things is really interesting, because, like, if the government could build a dam somewhere else that wasn't Hinamizawa, like, you know, sure, you do that, and maybe there were other energy alternatives, but at the same time, it could also be just, like, you know, lobbying that was like, oh yeah, we got the money to build a dam, let's just whack a great big dam here, and here's the cheapest place to put it. You know, there's balances there, checks and balances there that need to come into play. Keiichi's dad in the area, read that. Not saying they can't end up okay, just saying that it's not for certain. Oh, absolutely. Like, I'm not saying that you were suggesting anything as sinister as I suggested. I just thought it was a pertinent point to raise, because it's still kind of like a real issue. Like, you know, if anything, I would compliment you on an excellent observation, because it's a very interesting thing that, like, you know, obviously these characters could grow up to be, you know, troubled people, or grow up to be very well-adjusted people. It's kind of an interesting question about what possibilities there are after that. We'll all cut him up together. Remember what the manager used to say? Teamwork. Ah, the irony. We're all in this together. We'll each take a body part and hide it responsibly. What do you think, huh? Here in Wales, the event that sparked the modern nationalist movement was a village being flooded in order to build a reservoir for Liverpool, an English city, so it's a very realistic issue to me. Definitely. I wouldn't be surprised if Ryukishi had actually read either that or a similar story elsewhere to inspire this. If you could change anything about Higurashi, what would you change, if anything at all? I mean, aside just from like editing it so that it was easier to read, I mean, that would be the number one change that I'd make. But in terms of like what actually happens in the story, I don't know. I mean, on the one hand, on a personal level, I'd say I wouldn't change stuff because, like, it's boring if every story is exactly what you want it to be. Like, then you never have your expectations and interests challenged. But at the same time, I definitely could do with like a tweaking to the narrative about the parasite, just so that the thematics that it's trying to get across are less buried beneath Ryukishi seemingly trying to bewilder you. Like, he's definitely trying to bewilder you on purpose, but it's like exhausting. Less slice of life scenes, again, going back to the point about being challenged. I don't particularly enjoy the slice of life scenes, but at the same time, like, it would be inauthentic to Ryukishi for him to have them cut out. Let's go. Let me actually take a drink before we can definitely hear my voice declining. This is probably going to be voiceless Dracono by this time tomorrow. I want to say something, but I can't think of the right words. I can only sigh. Ah, Uishi-san, I've been looking for you. The section manager asked me about the wanted poster. Be quiet, this is a place of rest. As Kumagai barged into the room, the older coroner snapped back at him. Sorry. Oh, this is the introduction of the old man, is it? Confirm in chat. Confirm in chat. Is this the introduction of the old man who mysteriously appeared halfway through the bar scene? Can you talk to Komiyama-kun about that? I need to speak to the coroner here. Could you tell him I'll be right over? Okay. Kumagai ran out of the autopsy room with the same haste he entered. Lively, isn't he? The old man would have slapped him for making such a fuss. You probably should go back too. The air in here isn't for people who aren't used to it. That's an interesting line. I feel like that's not something someone would say in English. I wonder if there's like a different interpretation from the Japanese to that. If I slack off too long, I might get slapped as well. Here in Shishibone, all the hoodlums cross the street when you pass through, yet he's the only one, past or future, who's ever punched you for spinning your tsuma wrong. He really was a merciless man. Is it me, or is it weird the old man is never named? I don't mind that he's not named because, explicitly because he's a character that's brought in this late. It kind of just feels like Ryukishi just wanted someone else to throw some dialogue on to liven up the conversations between Uishi and Kumagai. So I understand his addition, but at the same time, yeah. He would have been someone I would have added earlier in the story as like a background character who got to step forwards later on in the story. Have a Magus Reader sick fic you should definitely not read? What does that even mean? My real father passed away in Nagoya. He was unlucky. If he wasn't given the orders to move to a plant in Nagoya, he wouldn't have died in an air raid. If you could have rode it out to it for another half a year or so, the war would have been over. I will not publicly read G-Chan's fanfics. That's the kind of thing, if you want to, you're going to have to earn. You're going to have to earn if you want the fanfics read on stream. I really like your idea of having Oishi visit his grave earlier in the story to then having the payoff being the Sonozaki sending the flowers. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff with Oishi in particular where Ryukishi definitely should have foreshadowed it earlier. I guess going back to the question about what I'd change, that actually would be something that I'd change just in terms of when certain things appear, because I don't think it actually changes much of what happens. It just means that things that are so good later in the story would be even better just by appearing. Like, even if the kids just, like, ran into Oishi in Okinomiya at the grave or something. 1 million subscriber special. I thought my feelings towards him would always be the same. Then the war ended, as I saw families and friends being reunited with joy as they came home from the front. It finally happened. I grieved for my father's death. Japan was filled with people who were sad and full of despair. I knew I wasn't the only one whose life ended up that way. But I remembered I was very, very heartbroken. After the war ended, the nation completely changed. As a policeman, the environment I worked in went through sudden changes too. In order to forget my sorrow, the only thing I could do was devote myself to my work. So I was told an interesting fact in just a discussion with some friends recently. Apparently, Japanese police have to, like, measure car parking spaces when you move into buildings, and also, what was the other really weird one? Like, elderly people have to have their BMI checked or something by the police. I don't know if either of those is true, but a friend of mine told me that, and that is fascinating to me. At the time, I was in charge of busting people for buying rice illegally. I conducted spot checks on travelers at major train stations, and boy did I find a lot of them. There was a fairly big black market in Gogura, and a lot of people came from as far as Osaka to buy it. After the war, Japan faced a chronic shortage in food supply. To those ends, the nation instituted a food rationing program by signing the Food Control Act. The BMI check thing was supposedly like they have to go see a doctor if their BMI was too high. I'm not entirely sure. It was just an anecdote that came up in conversation, and the mention of police reminded me of it. The rations government provided weren't even close to being enough to feed families, therefore people had no choice other than buying food and supplies on the black market. The government hardly had enough food for rations, but there was somehow plenty on the black market. The dealers there sold it at outrageous prices, and some of them became quite wealthy. The Sonozaki family made their money through that black market, but that's another story. It's another story, guys. We'll never get to read it. The government didn't bother arresting these dealers, for with their money they were able to buy off the top members of the police department. Instead, they decided to go after the people buying the goods and even confiscated the rice they bought by selling everything they owned. There was someone who left a comment, and I'm sorry I don't remember who it was, because it was a really good comment, talking about how Ryukishi's politics very much is just bringing a lens to things that actually happened and not offering a lot of commentary on them so that you have the space to make your own opinions, but still framing it within the lens of the story. So like here where he's talking about, you know, arresting the people buying rice rather than the people selling rice, like obviously you're like, oh, that's kind of messed up, but he never intentionally draws direct attention to it. Have you seen Steam Hands, but it's a playable episode of Imaneko? Yes. People have asked us several times to play it, but we mentioned, I think in Arc 7, that we probably weren't going to do it because it wouldn't actually be that funny. It'd be like a good 30-second meme, but doing the full episode, I feel, would just be exhausting the one joke. Prosecutor who vowed not to eat illegal rice starved to death, wasn't it, in 1947? That was horrible. A public prosecutor proved it to himself that people couldn't survive by adhering to the law. That prosecutor had grown tired of the government charging people with doing whatever they could do to survive. And he proclaimed that he was never going to buy black market rice again. In 1947, he starved to death when he was only in his mid-30s. You see, that's a good example of Ryukishi repeating himself. He drops you a fact and you're like, wait, what? And then he explains it once and then we're done. That's a good Ryukishi not repeating himself. The law prohibited people from buying black market rice, but that was the only way to survive. In that case, was the Food Control Act a bad law itself? The death of the prosecutor was seen as a desperate message to the government about the unjustness of that law. People always bug us about two things, steamed hams and the Uishi Keiichi rap. People stopped bugging us about the steamed hams thing. And, you know, I'm not saying that you're bothering me by asking about it, because, I mean, it is a genuinely good thing, and if you haven't seen the video, it is very entertaining. But we probably will never do it. The Uishikechi rap thing? Perhaps. And by perhaps, I mean we definitely will. We just have to actually, like, find a way to do it that will be entertaining. We inspected their bags and confiscated everything that they bought at the black market. The women cried. They sold everything they owned to buy the rice. They pleaded that if we confiscated the rice, how would they feed their starving children? Doesn't make sense, huh? Yet they forbade you from going after the sellers, so it was absolutely unfair from the view of the people. Everyone was on edge. If they heard a police inspection was set up at the next station, they'd jump off the train and run. We were aware of these people, so we set up several officers near jump-off spots in order to capture them. I remember chasing after women carrying several kilos of rice on them. That was when I first met the old man. Man, I was surprised. Remember my father? He looked exactly like him. I really thought that maybe my father had miraculously survived the air raid in Nagoya. I take it you don't have any strong opinions about The Simpsons? I have seen very little of The Simpsons. Ben, I think, has actually been rewatching it, and he may be joining us soon, TM. So I don't know if you have any Simpsons questions, drop them in chat. I can ask Ben about it. But I've not watched much in the way of like The Simpsons, Futurama, Family Guy, and South Park. I've not seen most of those. I've only seen exactly one episode of South Park. I don't remember what happened. I think it was an episode where they were at a ski resort and they kept being sold something at the top of a ski lift that their parents did. So either he'd get arrested with the illegal rice or he'd escape by ditching the rice that he bought by selling all of his belongings. In other words, if a person is being chased by the police, that person can't provide his family any rice to eat. Of course, I felt guilty about that. I knew people had to buy the rice to survive, so we had a tacit agreement to let those who ditched the rice and ran get away. So I always thought the same thing as I chased them. Please throw it away. I didn't want to catch them, because I didn't want to hear them crying and pleading in distress. It was then that the old man showed up. He looked exactly like my dead father. Then all of a sudden he punched me in the head. If a father disciplines you as a child, you lower your head in apology. I was so happy to see my father that I couldn't hold my joy in. The old man said, "Let him go." When I heard his voice, I realized he wasn't my father, so I had to arrest him for assaulting a policeman. But a young man like me who'd barely grown any hairs yet was no match for an older man used to fighting. He sure taught me a lesson. He gave me a good scolding in the middle of the street after I was all beat up. Who would even listen to him, right? But something struck me then. I kept seeing my father in him. All I could do was listen. He was a ruffian, but he showed his guts like a real man. That's what made him such a great guy. You don't see men like him nowadays. He was a true example of a man from the good old times. Despite my age, I still needed a father. I needed someone to look up to and to show me what makes a man a man. When I think about it, I really did have two fathers. The old man was a father, a brother, and my best friend. But now, here he lies with his head, body, arms, and legs all dismembered, and his right arm hasn't been found. He taught me how to be a man, how to enjoy alcohol, how to play mahjong, and with that right arm, he gave me a good beating when I did something wrong. But that right arm is still missing. Do you have any suspects? Yeah, of course. I swear I'll find the old man's right arm and pay them back for what they've done to him. They're running Hinamizawa from the shadows, inflicting this collective crime they call the Dam Protests, the Sonozaki family. I declare war within myself. I already know who my enemy is. Alrighty, there we go.
What?
Wait, who's that?
It could be anyone. Could literally be. Hold on, let me just check. What is Discord doing?
What is Discord doing?
I'm just gonna switch my mic real quick.
Alright, good luck. Welcome to the show, Mr. Benjamin Herds McGee.
Try that one.
There you go. Now you sound like you're not coming out of a fishbowl. I still sound like I'm coming out of a fishbowl.
That's alright. Fishbowls are nice and cozy, and I wish I lived in a fishbowl, honestly. Pretty swell. It also implies I could swim around in the bowl like a fish, so, you know, we're pretty into that. Let me know if my fan comes through on the mic.
Oh, this is interesting. Hold on.
What's interesting?
I've just realized that you're coming through at the volume of the game, which is to say very low.
Uh-huh.
So
no one can hear me.
Going to see...
Like the silent death.
Hold on, I'm just going to go into this scene.
Uh-huh. Just gonna keep going without me, like I'm not even here. This fragment can't be connected yet. Get wrecked.
Let me just
I
turn...
was here to fix this. and guide you. I don't know, can they hear me?
Yeah, okay,
I don't know.
there we go. All right, let me know if the game volume's good there. Yeah, it just occurred to me that let me just skip through the scene. It just occurred to me that Ben and the game are coming through on the same fader, and I'd turned the game way down.
Get wrecked.
But now we're good. Now you're audible. How are you today?
Yay. I'm okay. I've just been a little bit busy up until now.
Crazy.
Doing house stuff. Yeah.
Look at all the mistakes I've made here.
It's not that exciting. I know, right? I can't actually see it. The delay is a little bit low.
There you go.
Thank you. Now I can see it in real time.
All of these mistakes.
So the cracks of mistakes, are they?
Yeah. Cool. I was kind of disappointed. There's no like scene or anything. It just says it can't be connected yet.
I didn't think so. No. I mean, this is why y'all can hate as much as you like. My plan worked out flawlessly in terms of like going through the playthrough, because we got to go through it in record time. We didn't fuck around.
It's actually interesting.
Frustrated anybody else.
I was initially kind of like, oh, weird. Why didn't we just go through it? It would have been fun to like have me mess up a bit. But now that I'm going through and actually doing it, I realize that like there's nothing too screwing up. It's just can't go here yet. Like
I want to be. I'm going to be entirely honest. Like, I hadn't seen anyone go through this before. I'd watched a little bit of G-Chan's stream, and she was using the guide. And what I could tell online, most other people were like, just go through with the guide. You're not missing much if you don't. And it means you can get to that extra scene quicker. Yeah. Which is what happened, because we were smart about it. So.
The 10 fish. What is the purpose of this playthrough? This today, I've been sick, so we can't do the anime today, which was the original plan. So I just figured we could kind of hang out and see how far I could get through this. And how many mistakes I could make, which as you can see is 5 so far.
Has anything exciting happened while I've been away? You've been going for a little while now. Any highlight reels for me?
I don't know. We've just been talking about the fun stuff that we've been up to, recapping some of these scenes, looking at some of the interesting writing choices that Ryukushi's made.
Sure.
There was a question. There was a question someone asked, which we got stuck on for a little while, about what stuff we'd change about Higurashi.
Oh God!
I think it was Big Fella who asked that.
I mean, if you want an answer, like just make it a little less bloated. That's really all I can say.
It's I actually forgot about it until chat mentioned it, but the actually just moving some foreshadowing of some of the stuff that was really great later in the story earlier, like the grave with Ryukushi.
I mean that's.
Oh yeah, and I did a really good impression of your area. Chat said that was good. I couldn't tell.
Well, apparently, clearly you should be the crazy German doctor.
I couldn't do it now. My throat's kind of wearing on me.
I can tell. It's all right. I'm happy to talk a bit more if you can't. I mean, in terms of like moving the foreshadowing earlier, that's just a symptom of Ryukushi, like A, wanting to hold his cards closer to his chest.
Yeah. And
B, not having stuff set in stone yet. Like, again, another thing that people fight me on in the fandom, like Shion not being in episode 1. Like, people say, well, she was totally there. She just wasn't, like, explicitly there because Ryukushi, it wasn't the focus. But, like, in Ryukushi's puzzle building, Shion was not a piece, so to speak. So, even though it would be nice to be like, Mion says, oh, I have a twin sister, or, like, gee, sisters, they're, like, a crazy thing that I have feelings about.
Yeah.
Like, she hadn't set that in stone yet. So, that's just a symptom of that, I guess.
Yeah, as I was saying earlier, like, I wouldn't actually ask for too much to be changed about this story because, you do want to be challenged by the things you read.
Sure.
You don't want everything to fit to your expectations and desires because then you'd never experience anything different, right?
Sure.
Like, particularly, with Japanese translated works, just some of the language differences and the artistic decisions that the translators have to make, can create some really exciting idiosyncrasies that you'd never get in a native work.
Yeah. I don't think there's much disagreeing with that. I've always been a champion of how, as much as Ryukushi makes me, dare I say, cringe with his like writing decisions and the way that his works are translated and the endless repetitions and all that, all the other weird quirks of his writing, like that's what adds the character to his work, right? Like
Yeah.
I always know when I'm reading a Higurashi work because it has those quirks, and we can joke about how terrible they are.
Big
And,
fella wants to
you
know,
know.
are you a better cook than me?
What
What I said earlier is that we're about the same, but I'm more adventurous.
Yeah, because I think that you tend to cook based off of like recipes more often, whereas I'm more like I'm gonna cook something simple and then be like, what if I just like throw this thing in and like see how it tastes? What if I just like throw an egg on that or like throw some spices in?
Yeah,
So
I
I don't
normally
cook
go for
anything
recipes explicitly so I
complicated,
can try like learn some new stuff.
Yeah, I don't know.
Anyway, that was just because chat was asking earlier.
That's fine. Thank you. I am a champion, big fella. I appreciate your support in this trying time.
Near the supermarket, there's grocers and other stuff. The grocers is busy this time of day. All the housewives in Hinamizawa gather here to shop. Since Sadako and I have different things to buy, we decide to do our shopping separately. That's actually interesting. I've never been to like, I mean, I have been to shops in like more regional areas, but I always imagined that it'd be kind of empty because it'd be like a small community in one shop. But I guess it kind of makes sense that like in a regional community, everyone would start to show up at the same time so they could hang out while they go shopping.
Yeah, they all go to the same place is the thing. Like, I mean, I lived in a semi-rural area when I was growing up, and I noticed that like there was a point where I started going to the shops early in the morning so I could like buy my own stuff. This was between me like finishing university and moving out of home, so I was trying to be more independent. And I found that because I started going to the shops at like 6 or whatever in the morning or 7 in the morning because I'm trying to get early starts. And I would walk in and see there's just a bunch of like, I think they were truckers. It's been so long, but there were just there were clearly regulars having conversation with the cashiers, and to the point where they would look at me kind of funny, like, "Oh, he's not someone who never comes in at this time of day. That's weird. Like, who's this idiot coming in this early?" And you tend to get that. You tend to get the same people at the same times of the day over and over again.
Yeah, I'll just say before we continue, because we've just hit the second hour of the stream. If you're just joining us, we were going to do the anime today, but I'm a little under the weather, so we decided to kind of sit down and go through the fragments, see if I could piece it together without Magus's cheating ways.
I know, I ruined the playthrough. That's the official stance.
That's the official stance.
I also do want to say, Simon Gwynedd as Krebd Dick Simon. It's probably more what you would recommend as Ryukushi's editor for the sake of other people reading. This is the thing, right? Like, I totally agree that Ryukushi needs an editor. But the question is like who? Because when you add another like authorial voice into the mix, the style changes, the content changes.
Yeah.
So that is an excellent question. Maybe that's something we should look into. Like, is there somebody in the like visual novel community as an editor who could like go over his work? Because I actually want to know, this is a question for the internet. When Ryukushi wrote his arc of Rewrite, that arc suffered from being very disconnected from the other arc story.
Did you hear that Ryukushi's just announced a new work with Key?
Oh, for fuck's sake! What a nerd!
It was like
the last one.
It was like the end of last week or something. I'd completely missed it. What's it called?
I'm gonna have to look into that. But my question is, did he have an editor on that project? Because if they did, that editor was shit.
Yeah, it's called
and they
Loopers.
didn't keep tabs on Ryukushi's nonsense at all. One of the quirks that Ryukushi uses in that story that he doesn't set up and isn't a part of any other arcs is the idea of an unreliable narrator. There's a scene where there's a character who's like, and then I saw this printed out piece of paper and it had like the mark of the mystery person on it, and then I gave it to my friend. And then it turns out that scene was unreliable because they are quote unquote the culprits. And so they're allowed to have unreliable scenes because Ryukushi's writing a mystery story. But he doesn't like set that up at all. He doesn't have anyone talk about murder mystery before that scene. And it just feels completely out of place compared to the other arcs. So anyway, I'm done ranting about Rewrite. One day, maybe I'll sit you down and force you to read that story just so we can talk about how crazy
Maybe we should do Rewrite and then into Loopers for maximum Ryukushi Key chaos.
I don't want to read Rewrite again like as a playthrough. I'm gonna be real with you. I live streamed that the last time I read it, and it was hell. I wanted to shoot myself by the end.
I remember I was in class at university just talking shit in your chat while you were watching it, and you looked so defeated.
I just wanted it to be over. It suffers, like, you think that Ryukushi's works are bloated. At least they're entertaining when they're like, they've got too much bullshit in them.
Yeah.
Rewrite has way too much of everything, and I hate the protagonist. So
Mhm.
Anyway, let's get out of here. You tell what's this key project? Is that what's that?
Well, there's a trailer for it.
Oh my god! I'm gonna look this up.
And someone asked in a comment earlier today if we were going to react to it. I hadn't even heard of it until the comment
I
mentioned it.
hadn't either.
I'll be honest. I already
is this
watched the trailer,
wait.
and it's just a bunch of images and people dissolving. So
are you talking about Loop? Oh, you mean Loopers is the project that's been
Yes.
that they got the trailer for?
Yeah.
Yeah, we've known about that for a little while.
I didn't.
But yeah, sorry, no, I have heard of this, but I don't know. I don't know much about it. It's probably very similar to that other visual novel that he put out recently that was like really gory and crazy. It was like, they're cute skullgirls, but they're also getting horribly tortured. Probably gonna be similar to that. Yeah. Simon, I agree. I liked that the vibe was different to the others. I enjoyed the action sequences and the romance, but the actual plot of the arc I thought was pretty terrible. Anyway, I'd have to go back through my incredibly detailed notes. I should release those into the wild. There's too much of that. Anyway, you reading this scene, Felix? You got anything to talk about the thing that we're actually playing, or?
Well, I don't know. I've just kind of been answering chat and going through the scene when chat's not asking me enough questions.
Okay.
So
Cool. I wasn't sure.
There's no pressure. But she decided to keep her smile and pretend she doesn't mind. But I know it's far too painful for her to endure. I do like going back to these fragments, how like varied they are in tone, but consistent they are in pace. Like it is very lethargic, but in a way that I think you get to experience like, day in the life kind of sequences of these characters rather than being part of the like pacing narrative of the whole story. Hello, Lambda Delta. The real Lambda Delta.
The real one. Maybe we'll meet again when something else cries. Yeah, cool. What was I going to say? God. No, I agree with you, and stuff like that. I don't know. Like, I like the feeling that you're getting to see the notes of Ryukishi. Like, it feels like you're sitting down with Ryukishi, and he's like, "Here is my book of details and notes and all these little things that I've been sort of accruing over time." Because that happens when you're writing all the time, right? When you're like creating a story, you create like the stuff to show on screen, but then there's also stuff that you never get to show, and that's kind of the feeling that I get from all these stories. They're important things that have never been like pressing to show at a given moment, but are important to having the whole context, I guess.
Come here to poach all 18 of us. Yeah, if you're unfamiliar, guys, Lambda Delta in chat does a lot of like making the 07th expansion videos, CGs, OPs, and whatnot much more accessible for English speakers rather than having to try to decipher what the Japanese headers say. Yeah,
let's be real. Much better content creator than us. Much more worthy of your time. Go hang out with Lambda Delta.
I'm missing the slice of life scenes in Kikonia, where I feel like the story's happening before we know what day-to-day life is really like for the characters and who they are as people. Yeah, I do actually wonder. It felt to me from what I experienced of Kikonia, which was only like the first 12 chapters, I want to say.
A fair amount.
That Ryukishi was intentionally trying to avoid the more slice of life stuff, almost as like a challenge to himself based on what happened in the previous arcs. Because like even the slice of lifey scenes in Kikonia, to say nothing of what they actually include, content wise. And you can go.
They're much more important, right?
They are. The slice of life is discussing the like political thesis of the story. In that way where Ryukishi tries to just show what's happening that we were talking about earlier without giving us an opinion on it. But it's kind of interesting because he's having characters who have opinions say things in the story. An opinion comes across in a way that I thought was really interesting, and I do look forward to getting back to Kikonia when the next if the next episode comes out.
Well, this is the question. I don't want to shit on Ryukishi too much, but like, what is going on? I understand the reason why it's been delayed. I understand that some of its themes, its political themes, are getting a little bit close to home. What with COVID-19 and all that sort of stuff. Oh, I shouldn't say that in the video. Oh, well, too late.
What do you mean? It's fine.
Yeah, but like, what with what's going on in the world, like, there's reasons why that story got kind of delayed. But I don't know. Who knows? Maybe this will be another like the Last Express, where we get part one of the story and then we never get to see the end. Who knows?
Who knows?
Not to just randomly bring that up, but
that would actually, I mean, honestly, like, as much as that would annoy me as a reader, that would be a great addition to the expanded universe of Ryukushi lore. You want someone to play the console arcs or at least Miyotsukushi arc. I don't. What is Miyotsukushi?
I believe that's the alternate ending to Matsuri Bayashi.
Ah, okay.
Just off the top of my head, I don't know. I don't have a lot of like reason to read it. It has more like Mion Keiichi content, and it changes the ending a little bit.
Yeah.
I think we've talked about privately what it changes specifically, but it doesn't particularly interest me. Technically, I think the rule is you're not supposed to say stuff like in the first 10 minutes of the video, because that's all the YouTube algorithm like prioritizes, but it doesn't matter. Yeah, anyway, I don't know. I don't have a lot of interest in reading Miyotsukushi Hen.
Yeah.
There are a couple of them that I'm like, that seems kind of cool. Like the one where there's these new characters who come back to Hinamizawa and they see like the ghost of Mion, basically.
Yeah.
That one seems pretty cool. Obviously, we're going to read Higurashi at some point and probably watch the Rei arcs of the anime.
Yeah.
Get wrecked.
Correct.
It's so funny watching you go through this, considering that you've done this before.
Well, I'm intentionally trying to do it in a different order. Like I'm.
Okay, sure. You're trying to break the game.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Tuned in the beginning. Sorry to hear you were sick, Chrono. That's all right. Thank you. I'm not actually too bad. I'm just being cautious. Like, I still got a sore throat, but I wouldn't want to invite Ben over to record as we were planning to do, and then end up finding him sick next week.
Yeah, it wouldn't be fun, and that just delays everything another week. It's the problem.
Yeah, there we go.
What is this scene? The gathering place. It's the headquarters of the Onigafuchi Guardians.
If Matsuri is a bit more ensemble, Miyotsukushi has a lot more character focus on the club members specifically for Matsuri that didn't. Wow, it sounds like more Rena content.
Does it spotlight? Well, that's the question. Does it spotlight Rena? Because I've heard nothing about Rena and how she factors into that arc. I've heard it has a lot of Mion Keiichi content. I've heard that it has some Keiichi Rika content. I've heard that it has stuff about Hanyu. Like, I have heard nothing about Rena and her role in that arc. So really, if you want to convince me to play it, you got to tell me why it re-solidifies Rena as actually having a fucking presence in the final climax arc of the story. So, you know.
Favorite Umaneko OST. What was the name of the song from episode 5?
Dancing Pipe, obviously.
No. It's something color. It's a ZTS track. It's like the remix of Dead Angle.
Oh my god. I'm sure somebody will know in the comments. I did a
rock remix of it, actually.
I remember this. Because you called it Dead Color.
Yeah, that's why I can't remember it. Because it was like a hybrid of the two.
If I type in Umaneko Color into Google, Discolor. Yeah, that's very good.
Yeah.
I don't know. They're all really great. I don't know. I don't have a favorite off the top of my head.
I think
I'd have to go back through them. Go to the Grave is great.
Episode
the ending
7
is great.
I won't show you the cover on stream at the moment because I'm currently in the middle of like making it sound nicer. It is on my SoundCloud if you want to check it out because I put it up there for the Rikenjima forums back in the day.
Woo. Shout to Rikenjima.
There are 30 members of the Guardians here at the moment, and they're having a heated conversation about the plans for the future. Although this meeting is on the family's property, it's a community facility, so it closes at 9 p.m. Of course, sometimes the discussion gets so heated that it goes on past closing time, but meetings are supposed to end by 9. If a discussion ends early, they usually chit-chat until that time. That's what usually happens. Of course, they mostly talk about the dam even when they chit-chat. They talk about someone's mistreatment at the government office or someone getting arrested unjustly or complain that people at the dam construction are too violent.
It's not good. Let me tell you that World End Dominator was my favorite track for the longest time.
Yeah.
I think I've gotten a broad appreciation for all of the Umaneko tracks, but like the impact that scene had on me, the ending to episode 2, was like, what the fuck is going on? I love what this is and I want more of it. This is so different to everything else in the goddamn novel, and I love it. That was like my reaction, and I love that track.
Yeah, I think my SoundCloud name is Cardica, if anyone's trying to find it, Cardica.
Nice.
And I don't know, I think of all the episodes, episode 7 definitely had my favorite music. I think for Higurashi was probably episode 5 was the best use of music that Ryukishi did. Like, even though it was still kind of mixed, sketchy in a classic Ryukishi way, just the way that he used the theme of You.
Oh my god! There's actually, I should find it. There's a track somewhere that was never released by Dai, but it actually incorporated the You theme. I gotta find that one. I'm gonna find that while you
of ZTS's, like, I guess dancey tracks. The oh my god, what was the name of the witchy one?
I don't know. The one that plays in episode 8 during the fight between the two of them?
No, the...
They're all great.
It's the one that was kind of like Lambda and Burns' theme. I'm forgetting all their names. When are you doing another Kikonia video? We're doing another Kikonia video... A, when we feel like it, and B, at least when Ryukishi, no, not Resurrected Replayer, at least when Ryukishi releases the next arc.
Oh my god, Struck Gold.
Mirage Coordinator, that's the one.
That was pretty good. They're all great. They're all fantastic.
He could have imagined what would have happened if he just talked to her that way, yet he let his anger take over and voiced his unpleasant feelings.
No.
So most people think the Hojo family brought their isolation upon themselves. If they wanted to negotiate with the government regarding the move, they should have done so privately. And yet he was foolish enough to express himself at a public gathering like that. That's very Japanese.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yes, a public gathering where we discuss our things. If only he'd kept to himself at this public gathering where we're supposed to discuss our ideas.
No.
So not too many sympathize with the Hojo family. Ever since the big fight at the explanatory meeting, the Sonozaki family has looked at the Hojo family as their enemy and started to go after them. That caused the other pro-dam families to go quiet, fearing they'd be made into scapegoats too, and those wanted to leave were bitterly forced to give up. Even those people started criticizing the Hojo couple, saying they could have gotten their compensation to leave if the two hadn't picked the reckless fight. Both the anti-dam and pro-dam people hate the Hojos now, and the family has become even more isolated. This is like the most interesting line in this sequence to me, the fact that also the pro-dam people were just like, yeah, the Hojos, right? And alienated a handful of people who took pity on them as well, so now nobody even says anything to them. Actually, talking of Umineko music, someone left a comment, recently talking about how they were disappointed that the Steam release cut out the Star Trek sample from the song in Umineko that had it. And I was thinking to myself, like, as cool as that would have been to like hear it, I guarantee you I wouldn't have recognized it when it first showed up.
For sure. Well, it's kind of subtle, I guess.
Does it go if so, then it's likely ZTS.
Totally.
Rika always helps out by putting teacups away, so I'm sure she hears what they say as well. One of the Hojo family members, they're bad-mouthing as Rika's friend Sadako-chan. I don't even remember what the Star Trek sample says. I know where it's from. I know exactly when it happens in First Contact, because that was the first bit of Star Trek I ever watched. Yeah.
It's about like androids. I don't remember the exact
It's when the Borg Queen is talking to Data about becoming one of them, or becoming more human rather. It hurts to think about what Rika feels while hearing that. It's actually kind of like one of the things I like most about First Contact, I wish they'd explored more, is the idea that the Borg were like the other side of Data's quest to become more human. Oh,
sure.
Whoever asked us about Kikonia deleted their message.
They don't need to know anymore. We need to know. Kikonia isn't important.
Oyashiro-sama is God who makes peace between enemies. When the humans and demons fought, Oyashiro-sama descended from heaven and mediated between both sides.
Oh, I love that idea.
As the caretaker of this shrine, I must do something before it goes too far. Yeah, we were talking earlier on the stream about like the ways that things that were just, normal habits and completely ordinary things, like how, you know how Hinamizawa syndrome, when you like leave the village, acts up, and really you could just say that's like an analogy for like just being an outsider from a small community, right?
Sure.
And here it's like very much the same thing, like the deification of something that is really kind of just ordinary,
mundane. Yeah, totally. And I mean that's dripping from this entire story.
Absolutely, right? It's one of the best parts of it, far and away, in terms of its thematics.
I think it elevates it in my mind that like it's not just about, you know, magical stuff that happens. Like, I mean, this is all about Higurashi's work, how he always ties his supernatural themes in with something that is very real and ordinary, and makes it seem like, or makes you see that it's like more important than you think it is, you know?
Big fella with the big question in chat. Do you like Beto or Rena?
What's the question?
Ben?
It's impossible to answer.
It's an impossible question.
I mean, the problem is that I've known Rena for longer, so I'd probably go with Rena out of the two. That said, like as a couple, Beato and Battler are obviously superior to Rena and Keiji.
I think that is a fair fence-sitting answer, Ben. Well done.
Yeah, I mean,
Probably
look, I gave you two answers. There you go. I have to appease all sides. But no, I think Rena is just close. I mean, if I minimize the stream right now and I look at my wallpaper
desktop, it's
on
true.
my computer,
Ben has had the same Rena desktop for as long as I have known him.
Yeah, I literally at one point until I had to update everything on my phone. I have a picture of Rena at the Cotton Drifting Festival holding out the cotton for you to drift. On my computer desktop, I have "Why Do You Lie to Me?" I have her like in the door about to like put a hand through. Yeah. On my laptop, it was a picture of her standing in a field, looking back and saying, "You are not a flower from hell," which is a reference to the second anime arc opening.
Would you, Ben, come back for Rena riding on a white horse?
Yes, always. I would buy as many white horses as she wanted. I'd buy 20 white horses.
You know, that's, I mean, listen, if this was a recorded video, this is where I'd do an edit of Gandalf calling Shadowfax from Lord of the Rings, except it's you.
Yep.
And Rena's off in the distance.
That's terrible. I was going to say, would you put Rena's face on the horse, or is she just like standing off to the side? That's my question.
Who would the horse be? I'm trying to think.
That's the question I have for you.
No, the horse is going to be Keiichi.
Oh, okay, cool.
Keiichi's just a vehicle for you to get more Rena.
Sure. You know what, that's fair. That is true. I'm trying to find this goddamn song. I think my phone is just like, because I got a new phone recently, I think it's just like lost all my songs, which is weird, because I did the like transfer thing. It's garbage.
You did have a very unusual app that you used to play music off. It was like pulled from YouTube or something.
That was a different thing.
Yeah.
That was an app that was not paid by YouTube, but it allowed me to play YouTube videos without having to have the screen on. It's incredibly helpful.
But Ben, did you know you could become a member of YouTube Premium?
I know, right?
And play songs in the background?
I know, I could pay like, what is it, like $10 a month or something, or whatever it is. It's garbage. I've actually, you make fun of that. I've activated the free trial just until I can find an app that will allow me to do that without having to pay for the YouTube Premium. Not that you should be doing that. I can see that we are on the YouTube platform. Shout out to YouTube Premium.
We do actually get a kickback if you are a YouTube Premium subscriber.
Yeah, YouTube Premium is great. I have it on all my devices, bought it multiple times.
Actually, YouTube keeps sending me emails asking me to set up channel memberships, which is the like, you know, I guess Twitch subscription, YouTube member kind of thing. It's like $5 a month memberships or whatever, or like different tiers.
Yeah.
I wasn't gonna set it up, but if you guys are interested in chat, let me know.
Let us know,
because like it would sort of allow us on a small scale to do a bit more stuff. But at the same time, I wouldn't want to ask you for money when we're just doing this as a hobby. Yes, Ben.
That's true. Look, if you want to donate money to us, we will happily take it. We're not going to give that back to you, but don't do it if you're like, you have other priorities, please. I'm going to let you, oh my God. I'm going to let you know, I picked up my old phone because I'm trying to find this song still. And literally, it feels so small in my hand now that I'm used to my new phone.
Yeah.
My new like Android device that I picked that's like come out this year compared to my old iPhone 5S. It feels tiny now. It's so weird.
What's the best
even
part?
Even in my tiny hands, it feels tiny.
What's the best part of being a YouTuber? The money or the fame? The That is an interesting question. I have absolutely no idea. We technically have made money from YouTube, but because of the minimum threshold of money they can send you, we haven't actually received any yet. It was actually interesting your playthrough, how you opened my eyes to how Mion gets very little content because it's actually Shion most of the time and she's cowardly and bad. Yes. You're the electronic equivalent of street performers? Absolutely. Completely unironically, yes, we're the equivalent of street performers here.
Sure.
Where are we?
Just for the wider audience. Okay, before you go on, I need to tell you I found the song. So the problem is it's on the Higurashi no Nakikurani 10th anniversary CD. So shout out to that. I have it on my phone and I will never get rid of it. But it's a song called Believe. And there's a song that never made it into Umineko, but it's like got big Umineko dance vibes. And also has the U like theme in it. And people theorize it was supposed to be like a battle theme for Burn at the end of like episode 8. But yeah, Believe. It's one of my favorite tracks, possibly my favorite.
I still love that edit of Chrono Keiichi calling out Oishi. Yes, that's my favorite edit I've done for the show. Talking about Rena, I love the work they did talking about her school incident and her friendship with a character called Nagisa Ozaki that is actually very worth to read. What's that a part of?
Probably Miyatsuguchi. That way I'm trying to convince me to read it. So
yeah.
Maybe.
That's interesting.
I mean, yeah, I don't know. I'm literally in a state of mind where I'm like, I have read all of the arcs that I care about. There are a couple that I'm like interested in, but Mitsukushi is a big like devotion of time for like a retelling of a story that I've already read. So I don't know. I don't know. It's kind of hard for me to talk about, but like a lot of the like exploration I did of like the story and alternate arcs and things was done a long time ago. And usually when I go to read something new or different Higurashi, I'm like, yeah, that was okay, or like that was kind of stupid. Shout out to Outbreak. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe one day. If Flex is like, yeah, I'd love to read that, then maybe, but I don't have a strong indication of reading Mitsukushi.
Yeah, I mean, like, the stuff with the YouTube channel, this is, as I was saying a short bit ago, it's very much a hobby for us, and we don't have as much time as we used to, and VN stuff takes the longest to produce.
Yeah,
So...
It was just because I had time to sit and read the thing, so... let me see if I can actually find this song.
The man had already been moved to the research area in the clinic's basement, having been tied down to the exam... What are you...
So I was like, I'll just type in Higurashi Believe, because that's the name of the song. And it's like, I believe what you said, English version. I believe what you said, Go opening. I believe what you said, full version. Like, just, all right, thanks, YouTube, Google.
Having been tied down to the examination table, he's struggling against his restraints, but more as though he's deranged than actually resisting. Now, this is an interesting one, because I remember this scene, and it's like, compared to the rest of this, which is very slow and kind of, day in the life. It's not like slice of life in the same way, because it's not as like, I guess, microscopic as a lot of the slice of life scenes. But this is kind of the most like microscopic, slow-paced scene we get of a particular moment, and it's like a really intense moment, but it's delivered really slowly, which is a super interesting choice to me. Like, he's tied down to the table, and he's angry, sorrowful, and like a child throwing a tantrum all at once. It's just, it doesn't have the, like, I don't know. I would expect this scene to be a lot creepier than Rikishi delivered it. You should lock all of your content behind a $50 paywall.
I saw that.
I'm a firm believer in making content free and publicly available. Like, I wish alternatives to like ads were more easily available.
Wish for the death of capitalism? Is that what you're trying to say?
No. I still want people to get money for their work, Ben.
Yeah, okay.
But like, I don't really like paywalling stuff. I understand, for a lot of businesses it's necessary, but at the same time, like, if you can run a business without a paywall, it's so much better.
Yeah. I think we'd have to make some pretty special content to consider putting it behind a paywall. That's kind of how I think about it. Like, if we were like, we are going to make a proper, I don't even know what would like warrant being put behind a paywall. Just like some crazy series
yeah, like the
It's a
reason the
huge
reason
premium series.
yeah, the reason I'd be hesitant to do like channel memberships at the moment is not that I wouldn't want to like have the memberships and have the money. It's just that I feel that until we could make more than like, you know, a part-time wage off it, we wouldn't be able to provide your money's worth for it. Same with like Patreon and stuff.
Well, that's exactly it,
Like,
right?
you know, for like $100 a month or whatever, I couldn't actually produce $100 a month worth of stuff quite as easily.
I also feel like it would then put us onto like a higher standard in general. Like we can miss a week and be like, that's okay. We'll just like make it up next week. Or
I mean, that's why we're doing this stream today, right?
Well, sure, but like if people then start regularly paying us money, there's more pressure on us to like make more content and like keep it at a high level of like, not that we're not already trying to keep it a high level of quality, but like it adds that extra level of like pressure and expectation that you know.
Anyway, that's a discussion that, you know, if you would be interested in paying for stuff, by all means let us know, because like, yes, we would love to accept your money so we could do more of this, but also be aware that accepting your money won't might make as much of a difference until there's enough people. Are you interested in reading the last note of the Golden Witch? The short answer, if I'm thinking of the right one, if I'm thinking of the right
piece, is that
piece,
the new arc that was made?
No, that's
which one is that?
That's what is.
There's so many like little addendums.
That's Umineko
Yeah,
Saku. Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, is it?
Last Night of the Golden Witch is an extra arc, and it's got an image of the blue-haired lady.
Okay,
So yeah, that's Saku.
I've seen spoilers for that, so if we're gonna do that, Ben would be the blind one.
Which would be weird.
Which would be
but
fun.
I'm down for it. I'm down to just.
Is there a good translation of Last Note yet? I haven't actually looked in a while.
Yeah.
Bet he dismantled the body in order to hide it. I'm sure it depends on the circumstances, but you'll get more than just a few years in prison. Why does this take so long to actually print? You won't hesitate to dissect a scumbag like him, right? We were talking earlier, Ben, about how like you know, Irie's, you know, progress as a person being weaponized against him as hypocrisy is a really interesting choice. And it's kind of fun because in the earlier scene, I think Takano was a lot more indirect about it, and Irie leads himself down the garden road for it, but this time Takano just kind of goes straight at him. Yeah,
because she knows him better now, right?
They've
very
had
much,
years
Simon. Working together. They're
massively appreciate your contributions.
Shout out to Simon. What?
What causes a defect of... What did that say?
I don't know.
What causes a defect of human nature? What is a defect of human nature?
I don't know.
That was precisely Irie's area of research. Hate the crime, not the criminal. Can criminals only be corrected by punishing them with imprisonment? If a person commits a crime because of a mental disorder but then gets a treatment, he is corrected. In other words, there are no crimes in this world, only patients awaiting treatment without anyone else being able to understand them. In medieval times, patients with mental disorders were said to be possessed by demons, and they were either confined or killed. Centuries
Simon, look, we will share that half a cup of coffee between the two of us.
That's right. Once I'm not sick and we can safely share.
We can just use measuring cups. It'll be great. And straws. Nice and sanitized.
Centuries after, they finally acknowledged as mentally ill people who needed treatment. Perception can change with time. Even if they are called criminals now, maybe after several centuries, those criminals will be acknowledged as patients who are entitled to appropriate treatment. Explaining crimes through illnesses instead of malice. That's my life's work. Inamizawa syndrome is a strange disease that can support my theory. Solving mysteries is extremely important to me. To solve these mysteries, I need a medical sacrifice. It's an extremely sinful thing to do, but there's no way to unravel this world with 2 Jakurno's 1 cups. I'd like to unread that comment.
Oh,
Area
no.
Institute was unauthorized to take such drastic measures if necessary.
Was authorized, Jakurno. Come on.
Save up to get get back to the engine to your truck. Absolutely, we need to get it back. We got to get out.
There is a kind of an interesting angle there that Irie is talking about, like, I need to make a medical sacrifice in order to unravel the mystery of the brain. Like, when we read a murder mystery, we need a sacrifice of a dead body in order to solve the murder mystery. Interesting little all parallel there, don't you think?
Mm-hmm.
Look at that.
And finally, the opportunity is here. This will be the first step of our research on this strange disease, but even now, I'm a little hesitant. I've opened up human bodies in many surgeries. What I'll be doing on this man is something very similar, but there's also something that's very different. What I did before was part of treatment. What I did to save the patients' lives. I did it so the patients could have a better future. But what I'm trying to do here isn't treatment. He will die at the end of it. His death will be far from humane. I'm going to violate nature and force him to stay alive while I open his living brain.
Oh no, not the brain. We need that.
How much money is the engine worth?
I don't know.
Oh,
I don't know
goodness.
that we ever decided on that. Too much to count. You'd have to find the richest king in the world.
Dude, what if we just actually bought like an actual truck engine?
No, we don't have those kind of funds. Unless it's a shitty engine.
we could just get like a decommissioned one from like a scrapyard.
Actually, no.
You know what? Let's do it. Let's with all of the YouTube millions we make, let's go to Japan and go take a like dismantled truck engine and just bring it to Ryukashi when we interview him.
So there's a 24V V8 high-speed generator electromagnetic engine teaching motor model for $300.
He's just not even going to pay that joke any mind, is he?
I'm not paying attention. I'm done with you. Yeah, look.
No to $1,000 book, but yes to an engine. Well, listen, the engine would be the engine. We give it to Ryukashi and then we steal it back, and then we can sell the engine again.
It's also part of a bit. The book is not part of a bit.
That's true.
If anything, the bit is enhanced by not having the book.
It's
like
true.
Not finishing Air.
Not to mention, Inspector Mishi Investigates was a good book.
It was. Look, we've read lots of good books this year and last year and every year. We are the best at picking books.
He's oh yeah, guys, hold on. Let me how do I do? Go like that? No? Okay.
Oh my goodness, give me a second.
Let me, oh, hello, it's my CG folder from making the thumbnail.
Don't show them the secrets, they are not worthy.
Here we go. Let's open this up.
It is your wallet. Yes.
If you
want...
say
that our wallet is a joke, Krono's wallet is a joke. That makes sense to me.
If you guys want some recommendations of Japanese mystery fiction from Dr. Satomi Saito, here is the list that he sent me of novels that he would wish would be translated into English so English readers would get it. So I'm very excited to go angrily talk with some publishers about getting these translated.
That's really the whole goal of this year. It's not really like writing a book. It's actually just getting these other books translated.
I mean, we can do both at once. We can do both at once.
My old hoodie that was like the hoodie that I was known for back in high school. I don't think I have it anymore. It was all the colors of the rainbow.
All the colors of the rainbow.
It literally was. That was its design. It had like these like gangster like graffiti looking marks all over it, and it was rainbow colored. And it got used in a school play once. It got used in a play about like kids getting left behind by their parents all the time. They had shitty parents, and so the thing was that because we had so many people that were doing theater that year, they split the main characters up into different actors. So the way that the story is kind of framed is that we cut back and forth between the two kids in a car that they've been like left behind by their parents, and they'd be like, remember the time when we had to go to that shop and our mum wasn't there or whatever, and then we cut to another scene and we cut back and forth with the car and another like vignette scene, and each time the two children were played by different actors. So the way that they figured out who was the boy child
Thanks for coming, Lambda
was they were
Delta.
wearing my jumper. Thanks for coming, Lambda Delta. We'll see you next time. But yeah, so my jumper is officially a part of my school's history.
That is good. There are parts. I don't know. Golden Fantasia.
I'm sure you're very
with a
excited
friend.
by it.
Man.
Oh god.
We still haven't actually played off against each other. I've been doing lots of fighting game training to prepare for it.
I have not. I've been playing strategy games. So, do you want to play the Umaneko strategy game? Like Oh my god, I feel so weird. I've gotten so much better at them, like RTSs. It's great.
It's great. Maybe
It
one day.
feels-
Maybe.
it feels weird.
I feel like that's, I don't know. Would that be worthy of a YouTube stream, or should we do that as a Twitch stream so it doesn't clog up the feed?
I don't know. We could do it as a YouTube stream.
Remember the resolve
what?
that brought me here to this day? I already have blood on my hands. But if I stop,
Oh,
their
no.
lives will be wasted. Those who shed their blood can only rest in peace once they become the cornerstones of great research. Is your school, Ben, the kind of school that has, like, you know, walls of plaques and stuff up everywhere?
Class, yeah, sure. It was a pretty prestigious school, yeah. It was one of those things where, like, when people heard that was the school I was going to for high school, they were like, "Oh, you snob! You're going to the rich Christian school." We weren't like that crazy. There was some school, King's private school, I think it was. That we were like, those guys are way like more snooty than us, way more.
King's
like,
is definitely snooty, pretty here in Sydney.
But the school that I went to was like known for being a little snooty, but not the worst of it. Not by a
Well,
long
I
shot.
mean, that's what every private school tells itself.
Sure. I had people telling me that before I even moved there.
There
It wasn't
is
so
only
bad,
one
though.
plaque in the entirety of my school with my name on it, and it's for being the captain of fencing.
Let's put it this way: like our principal literally took because he was a drama teacher by trade.
Yeah.
So he took time out of his principal schedule to come and teach the theater class that I was in. He helped me put on my play. So, you know, people say he was a pretty ineffective principal, but he was good to me. He taught me about Greek theater. So that's good.
So the other thing I wanted to kind of mention as we're going through here, looking at Irie's backstory, is that like obviously in this part of in this part of the fragments, like we're getting Takano and Irie's backstory for like the first time really, because they've been, you know, the suspicious ones, and we can't actually know what they're up to because that'd spoil the surprise, or whatever mystery authors tell themselves. And it's kind of interesting because I feel as though Irie is the kind of person that you might have actually been able to get away with putting some of his backstory earlier on, like in terms of his sympathy with the kids.
Family stuff, I think.
I almost wonder if like part of the reason, particularly that Irie doesn't get mentions of his backstory earlier on, is like a level of politeness. Like I would say, you know, it's kind of Japanese, but I think that the level of, you know, not telling people your story because you're being polite is a thing here in the West to a degree as well. Because like, you know, really his experiences like with his parents and how his father, he wanted to like repair the relationship with his parents, I think actually would have been something that, you know, would have played well in terms of discussions with like Keiichi,
Sure.
when they're, you know, dealing with Sadako in Arc 3 and Arc 7. But we don't really get to hear about it until now. And like obviously you get the indirect storytelling from Irie to Irie and Sadako's relationship in terms of that, you know, Sadako's having family trouble, and thus you can infer Irie feels some sympathy or empathy for that. But I don't know, do you think it would have worked to like have something more direct early for Irie earlier in the story?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of his like emotional state, sure. I think you could have had more of that, because it's obvious that he cares for the kids, even from like Arc 3. That's a huge part of like he's putting on functions, he's looking after the baseball team, he's looking after or Arc 3, you know what, Arc 5, you know, whatever arc, all the arcs, doesn't matter. You know, from early on, he's like looking after the kids and making sure everything's all right. Arc 3 and 5 in particular. I think in my mind, the reason why Irie doesn't get as fleshed out a backstory is just to avoid the medical talk, because even though there's a medical practice in the village, and it's sort of tangentially important to different characters in terms of like, you know, they're like, oh, I'm sick, I should get a notice to say where I was today. Shout out to Keiichi in Arc 1. And like Sadako wanting to go to the clinic to like get help in Arc 3, like it's important to those character moments, but I think that Ruchi really didn't want to focus on, you know, the discussion of disease and biology.
Well,
love
I
so
mean,
much.
you say that as though Arc
Full reveal.
5 and 6 didn't have just readings of a
But a
diary.
lot of that's but a lot of that stuff is
Thanks for
is
coming,
sort
Apparition.
of obscured. Thank you, Apparition. We'll see you around. A lot of that stuff is sort of obfuscated. That's
Yeah.
the term that I want to use. Through Takano's, journals and her notes, and it's obviously batshit insane when Reno's like, yes, all these like theories about disease and stuff. It's aliens, right? Like we're getting to see the sort of medical side of Oyoshiro-sama and seeing the more like real side of that through the lens of the characters that we already know.
Yeah.
We're not being like, Irie, tell us about your thesis about brain surgery and like why you care about brains, because I think that would be, in Ryushi's mind at least, showing his hand a little bit too early.
Yeah, for sure.
Most of the discussions about medicine are done through a biased lens, and more importantly, they're being told by either someone who doesn't actually know much about medicine or who has reason to like twist the details, that being Takano, right? So if we got Irie, who has a sort of what we, in a murder mystery setting at least, an unbiased perspective on the like medical stuff in the town, if we start to focus more in on that, Ryushi is afraid that more readers will ping on the science side of the story.
I agree. I think what I would have done if I was to make this change, I honestly wouldn't, but if I was to make this change, what I'd do is just have Irie talk a bit more about his family earlier in the story, so that when we get here, suddenly we learn that the family is not just his reason for empathy, but also his reason for becoming a doctor, which I think, based on my experience with being part of the medical networks here in Sydney, just by proxy through my family, is that that's a lot of it. A lot of the people I know that have gone into medicine have had like cases of certain illnesses in their family that they then end up going into research, and I think that setting that up and paying that off in this story would be an interesting way to connect with particularly that kind of person.
Irie wouldn't even have to say like it was a brain problem with my family. He just have to say like I lost my family and that's why I care about Sadako. Like I had a discussion actually. Just
all I can think of is a possible crossover between a medical drama and the medical side of Higurashi. No, thanks.
Oh god. I mean, that's not even a big stretch. I was gonna say like a big trope in TV shows and in visual novels when you want to introduce like the real explanation for what's going on in the story is to have like a teacher talking about it. So just having a scene where Iri's like, let me tell you about the science of brains. I assure you this will have nothing to do with the plot. It is just single scene to introduce character setting. It's fine. Like that would work fine. I also want to say just because I had a conversation with a friend of mine like 2-3 days ago, where we were talking about Iri as a character, and it literally started with because we were talking about Ryushi's like perverted humor and how that makes its way to his work and how like frustrated it is. And my friend, he just said, "Oh God!" And there's that awful doctor character who wants to marry Sadako, and I'm like, "What?" I mean, I guess like that's a bit that Ryushi does. Well, that's all that he cared about. And because he'd watched the anime, and that has a lot less of the backstory. So,
well, I think that's part of like why the thought even crossed my mind of like dragging it earlier in the story, much in the same with like Uishi and the scene at the grave.
I think that making Iri just because it's kind of weird that in Arc 7 there's the question of like, is it Takano or Iri? Because like trying to figure it out, she's trying to put all the pieces together, and to most readers, I think it's not even going to be a god question. Because of how suspicious Takano was played. I think if Ryushi had thrown that moment out the window and spent more time having Iri just talk about, I care about Sadako and Satoshi because I've had family problems, and he doesn't even have to say what they are. He just gives a little bit more context to him spinning through the air with maid outfits, pulling them out of nowhere. Like, just adds that little bit extra level of credibility to his character. I think that would have been a really positive change. But, Ryushi wanted to...
lighthearted, borderline sexual stuff is just totally unacceptable to a modern Western audience. It's a huge shame it's in there.
For sure.
I don't know, there's been a few commenters who have been going through kind of talking about particularly my relationship to the like sexual content in the story compared to like my relationship to the violent content, because realistically, like they're both a massive taboo, but we're kind of used to violence in stories where we're not used to sexuality in stories, and that's kind of like an interesting point to raise and discuss. I think we brought it up in one of the recaps, but I don't know. I think that particularly just the point about it being inaccessible to Western audiences is, I guess, kind of my biggest gripe with it, because like I can overlook it and understand it, and I don't like it because I feel as though there's some kind of blurred line in where sexual content goes from intentionally exaggerated to like a bit too real, to like encouraging, like encouraging, whereas violence is clearly normally just like always wrong, or it's like just slapstick violence where it kind of, I don't want to say it doesn't matter, because that's kind of like, you know, a false equivalence, I suppose, but you know, like kind of nudging your friend in the side kind of thing.
I mean, look, I've mentioned on the show a couple of times, like I really enjoy horror movies because the actual art of like creating a squib or developing a technique to show violence in a way that is cost effective but still like doesn't look terrible. Like, I mean, I talked on an episode of fucking Death of the Reader about this, about the Dawn of the Dead movie in the shopping mall, where they had so many zombies they wanted to shoot in the head. So they were like, let's just put a little bit of tomato sauce packet with a coin attached to it, a bit of string.
That episode hasn't come out yet. Spoilers for Death of the Reader.
Spoilers. You know what? It's too late. You'll know the future. But yeah, in the future, I'm going to talk about like techniques that horror, you know, like makeup artists use to make that stuff cost effective while still looking good. And that is something that I enjoy. But sexual content, like I can't talk about it artistically. You know, I can't say, yes, this is the incredibly, like, I don't know, maybe you disagree, but like I don't feel like there's an interest, like a fun way to talk about integrating sexual content or like sex jokes.
The thing Millennium Master said here, it's important to acknowledge there are different points of view in the world regardless of how deviant they might be. I think that's what I'm saying, is that like, you know, I as a Western reader have difficulty showing it to people around me because they have that barrier, whereas I kind of understand it. And like, I still kind of don't enjoy it. I just don't enjoy like romance and sexual content in stories in general, just because I feel like, I don't know, I feel like a lot of the times, particularly when some stories go too far, you can just be like, oh, I'm living a fantasy of yours that I'm not into with romance stuff. Well, that's
the thing. It can feel in violence getting more indulgent is fun. Sexual content getting more indulgent feels weird.
I disagree with that statement. I think like, well, specifically in that violence, like most of the time, or the majority of the time, you can say that violence is like accepted to be wrong, whereas sexual content very much blurs that line between fantasy and like intention
and mystery. Sorry, couldn't help myself.
Yeah, it blurs that line with fantasy. So like, I don't know.
I guess
it's a question I will never be able to answer.
It's a complicated question. I can just, you know, we can just tell each other and tell you guys like this is how we feel about it. It's a shame that
mostly we can say what we enjoy, and that it is difficult to show it to people around us because people around us often enjoy similar things.
They get put by it. Yeah. I mean, shout out to Umaneko, literally, like, in, like, maybe the first chapter, that was like, man, Maria, when you grow up, I'm going to touch your boobs. That'd be great. And it's like, you're talking to a 9-year-old girl. Like, what is happening here?
Yeah.
How is this a scene that is occurring? You know, like, it's crazy. And that is incredibly off-putting to people. And yeah, then you fall in the trap of saying like, well, don't worry, like it gets good later. In like season 4, it gets good, I promise you. And season 6, best shit I've ever seen in my life. But you gotta get through that like initial discomfort.
Yeah, and I mean the interesting thing there, and we've talked about. Why is this one?
Oh, I know what you're talking about, G-Chan.
Oh, we can go to it now.
Batsugoshi, I want to say. Rudo-san,
that's interesting. So if you screw up and then unlock it, it just shows you that it's unlocked. That's kind of.
I wasn't paying attention.
There was like a
That's
blue
weird.
border around it once we unlocked it.
To show that you unlocked it now.
Yeah.
Well, this is what I'm saying. Everybody who's complaining at me for not doing this properly, fuck y'all. Get out of here.
It's all right. We've had that argument. We've won.
I know. It's a cool like idea, but I think that video games like with more interactivity just do it better. Like,
I think that's the main thing, is that it gives you the illusion of choice, which is an interesting, comparison to the story itself and its ideas of choice and repetition. But in terms of like actually engaging with the mechanic, there's nothing much to engage with. You're basically going down a series of funnels that only lead in one direction.
Yeah. And I think that I mean you were talking about you would have liked to have seen some extra scenes in the middle, like if you screw up maybe something slightly different happens or whatever. I actually think that, not to drag this back around again, but The Last Express with its diary entries, its foreshadowing of alternate events, does that very well.
I mean, that's why it crossed my mind to do this, because I remembered we'd mentioned it, and I was like, oh yeah, that's kind of like The Last Express had with all of these different scenes, and then I got in here and there's no extra scenes.
There are some games out there and some story-based experiences that do a really good job of this. Because actually, in regular choose your own adventure books, I remember there was one that was like a fantasy story, and it literally was like every other page was like a bad end. And that was the most fun, though. When I read a choose your own adventure story, like a real actual physical book, what I actually do is that I open the book, I read to the first decision, I say, all right, so the first decision is going to take me to page 17, and the next is going to take me to page 112. I'm like, the 112 is probably a bad end, so I'm going to read that first. That sounds like fun. So rather than like reading a choose your own adventure book, like I'm trying to get to the end, I'll try and read as many bad ends as I can to like fully understand the whole story.
Lost Express is greater than Higurashi because it has nipples.
It is. What?
All right, hold on. While we're derailed from this rant, the red-blue choice in Arc 4 was quite literally and explicitly showing the illusion of choice, so it may well be on his mind. Absolutely, I agree. Sure. That's why I kind of give it the benefit of the doubt, even though I would have loved it to have more choice. Are you guys aware of the YouTuber Best Sonozaki? She made some great Higurashi content. I've watched a couple of her video essays on... one of them was on, I think, the Sonozaki twins, and I forget what the other was on. But yeah, shout out to Best Sonozaki.
Yeah, I don't think I've watched her videos, but I've seen her stuff. Oh yeah, I saw this one pop up in my recommendeds, actually, a guide to Higurashi's bonus arcs. Good luck with that. But yeah, no.
Oh yeah, I have that. I had that saved in case we needed it.
Yeah. Well, I don't think we will, but yeah, there's a lot of crap.
All right, well, we're about to hit the third hour on the stream, and one thing that I'd hoped to do before we got to the end of the stream, Ben, was talk a little bit about Okanogi, because someone mentioned in the comments that we should have talked about it, and we didn't in either of the previous two recaps, so now's the time to make penance for our sins.
Okay. Sure.
I just wanted to talk about it, because I think like one of the things is that we have so many moments where Ryukishi clearly has like a level of self-insertion to the story. Either through like his portrayal of just the topics that are close and important to him, like child support programs and social workers, be it through the way that some characters just make decisions that are clearly very I guess Ryukishi in tone. But then there's Okanogi, who is like far and away the furthest from Ryukishi as a character, but in some ways is like his authorial insert, because he's the one character that has appeared in every property.
It's particularly in Umineko, I think. Like when he shows up in Umineko, spoilers. There will be some Umineko spoilers in this discussion, just so we're entirely clear. But
yeah.
When Okanogi shows up in Umineko, he's talking about the themes of the story as a whole. Yeah. He's like, you gotta like, I don't remember exactly what he says, but he's like,
that's right. We're not going to tell you because that would be too much spoilers.
Yeah, too much. That's why I just said all that stuff just then.
That's right. I talked over the top of you. I don't think it came through.
That's fine. I mean, it doesn't matter. Like, I don't know what he said, but he basically is like, Anjay, you are, struggling with these feelings, but maybe you'll like learn about, what it means to be a real person. Yeah. He's got that like guidance mentor thing, but he's also totally out to screw her over. And Ryukishi does this really cool thing where because we're like familiar with Okanogi in one way or another, most of us anyway. Yeah. We're expecting him to like be a bad guy, but we're also expecting him because he is in all of the When They Cry properties and also in some of the non-When They Cry properties. We're expecting him to have some level of authority.
Yeah.
As kind of an arbiter of the themes of the work that he's currently in. Particularly Kikonia, I think this is like really obviously the case where he's like the overseer to some of the like super soldier kids, the Gauntlet Knights. That's what they're called. It's been so long. But he's also like looking out for them. And he's also trying to like stick to the protocols. Like he's doing all this stuff. And in all the works that he's in, he ties in really strongly with the themes without having too much of a presence, I think.
Yeah. I think
Like,
that would
he's
answer
always
Simon's question in chat about when and why he decided to include him. Like, in that, because he is in this role as the, you know, vaguely military connected guy, he kind of has a, he's like a
Cool
gun
position.
for hire both within the story and within the story's themes.
Yeah. He can be tied into the sort of the realer side of the story, the side that's like cynical and harsh.
Also,
he can be
Simon,
tied into that element of the story very easily.
I think the quote is first said in episode 2 by one of the servants when they're looking out at the ocean. But I'm not actually 100% sure on that.
I should be able to talk about Kikonia, but I mean, maybe he definitely does say it in Numeneko.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean, well, that's the thing, right? Like he's positioned to be, because he's that military guy. He's on the cynical side of things. I think that most people, when they're reading through the novel, they're looking at Okanogi like, so what's this story really about?
Yeah.
Like, what is the harsh reality that Ryuki's trying to like teach us about today? But he's also a side character. He's never quite as important, I guess, as the other characters in the novel.
He's a fun inclusion. The one I was thinking about recently after talking with Dr. Satomi Saito of Here It Comes, Death of the Reader, was how like Yukiro Ayatsuji, who we're covering at the moment with the Decagon House Murders, his like consistent piece from novel to novel is the architects and architecture of the mansions in which the murders of his stories take place. Right?
Yeah.
So like it's a very tried and true thing to have your character that comes across from story to story to story. And you know, Okanogi I think is a really good choice for Yukashi because just of the themes he deals with and how he needs that kind of mercenary gun for hire person who can just fit in anywhere. Like that's kind of the fun thing about the Mountain Dog's portrayal in Hinamizawa is that like they intentionally come in and they're like, oh yeah, they can just blend in and fit in as like part of the local crowd, and that's totally what Okanogi does in like his different appearances in Ryukashi's work.
Yeah, Simon, in response to your question there, do you think he's written consistently in terms of his moral beliefs and actions across the three works? I mean, he's always honorable. Like that is a thing that he is. He's always like goals driven, and he has a certain code of honor that he sticks to across all the works. He's still like a cutthroat mercenary, and he will screw people over for money. But like, if you beat him, then you've beaten him. If you call him out, he'll be like admit to it, basically. He has like a very specific code of honor that he adheres to, and I think that's consistent.
I think
that said, we do more of his empathy in Kikonia than in any other work. I think.
I think the other interesting thing is that because of the way he is written, where he's a chameleon, so to say, the consistency works because his characterization is light enough on its feet that it can change without feeling out of place.
Yeah.
So
it's funny that you mentioned Oishi, actually, because I think that it would be extremely strange to have Oishi, pulled across all the different works, because he has a similar effect across arcs 1 to 4, right? Like the way that Oishi is the same, but we see him in sort of a slightly different light each time, and the way that he interacts with Keiichi is sort of a similar principle to how we see Okanogi inserted into the 3 different When They Cry franchises.
Yeah. Alrighty. Well, I think we'll get to the end of this scene and call it a day, because it's been about 3 hours that I've been hanging out here.
Too long.
Too long. That's right. So we'll continue on. We're talking about Dr. Takano's discovery of the syndrome, but he didn't stop researching until he collapsed.
Oh no.
Dear poor
That's no good.
Dr.
Not-
Hifumi
not that
Takano.
guy.
He believed that someday he'd be acknowledged. Actually, question for the chat. I've been asking a bunch of my friends this recently. And Hifumi and Takano herself just reminded me of this. So obviously one of the things with Takano in the story is that she like changes her name to like take on the numbers sequence in her name.
1, 2, 3, and 3, 4, 5, or whatever.
So I've been asking a bunch of friends this, Ben, and I'm gonna ask you in chat right now. If you were to go to another country that used like just a different script, be it like Greece or Russia or Japan or China or whatever, would you just use your regular name but like phonetically spelled in that language, or would you just come up with a new name? Because I just kind of, I'd just take a different name.
I'd take a new name. That sounds like more fun.
Yeah, right.
I also think that maybe this is a weird thing to do, but when I was in high school and I'd meet people that were like exchange students from different countries, and they were like, "Hello, my name is James," I'd be like I'd ask them, "Is James like your birth name, or is that just the name that you've chosen to like use here? And like, which would you rather I call you by?" And I think that's like an interesting conversation to have. So, yeah, I'd just pick a new name. Fuck it, like that's more fun. And I also think that being called like Ben or Magus or whatever is weird. Like I don't know. That just seems like a weird thing to do to me. You're instantly flagging the fact that you're like foreign, which is.
I don't mind flagging that I'm foreign. It's just like, I don't know. When you're already like, because places with other scripts, right? They don't have the same phoneticism.
Sure.
So like in Japan, my name would be like Felix or whatever.
Sure.
And it's like close enough, but it's not exactly the same phoneticism. So I don't know. I'd use something that translated like.
I'd pick a name, something fun, something. You know what I'd do? I'd find out what Magician of Words is in Japanese script and pick that. Let's be real.
Also, Simon, to answer your question, streams, they're going to be a more regular but not entirely regular thing. So Fridays, our Fridays at roughly 2 p.m, we're going to be doing game stuff for Death of the Reader because we're doing interactive fiction at the moment. We missed last week just because of life stuff, as I mentioned earlier in the stream. So I think next is going to be Oberdin, and I'm going to be the expert for that, quote unquote, while Ben's going to be the blind one.
I have no idea what to expect. So, although that said, I have played Andrew Pope's. Was it Andrew Pope? Whatever. I've played these games before. The game at the Oberdin, I've played Papers, Please. So I have some idea of what to expect. Bureaucracy, going to be great. Anyway.
Millennium Master would like their name. Who else? So I should take the name Ryukashi? No. If I was going to go to Japan, I'd probably go with Kartika, which would
Lucas
be...
Pope, there he is. Anyway, yeah.
I don't know the names of the kanji, but the ka with like the extension, like the line to drag out the vowel, and then dika, which is like D-I-K-A in Romaji. Because, you know, with the Australian accent, I don't pronounce the letter R in Kartika, C-A-R-D-I-C-A. Then the Japanese pronunciation basically sounds exactly the same, and that would, like, I guess be easier for me if I was going to go to Japan. I know my dad, I didn't actually know this until this past week, but my dad was called Dr. Always Happy while he was working in Hong Kong.
Nice. Pretty good.
I didn't know that. He was the only member of my family who said he might take a different name. But actually, most of my friends said they'd keep their name. Alexa said they'd keep they'd go a new name. I feel like it's going different variations of a given name depending on which group you're around. Would you have an artist name? Sure. Yeah. I mean, like having a pen name, an artist name. Like, I don't know. I already go by so many different names. I go by Kartika, I go by Chakrono, I go by Flex, and other stuff with different groups of friends. So like,
I mean, I've gotten to the point where like I don't expect to be called by a name. I don't know how to explain it, but like if someone's just like I don't know, like they just talk to me, and if you say Magus or Ben, I'm like, oh yeah, you talk to me, but like
yeah,
I don't know. I don't feel like people like call me by name so much anymore, I guess.
Also, Simon, it took me a second to pass what you said here just because I was trying to figure out, but Simon was saying that if your surname is White, you'd use the word for it rather than something that sounds like White. That's a fun idea.
Sure.
I don't think there's anything that would quite work for like my name like that or yours, Ben's, but I guess Herder would probably have a word
Yeah.
Um,
It will be fine.
the other thing that's interesting, particularly with
Boring
like Han character languages like kanji and
Mhm.
I forget which one in Chinese uses the like complicated characters. I think I want to say it's Cantonese, but I am far from an expert. I know fucking nothing about the language. But like those characters there, I don't know how the pronunciation of them works, but it's fun there because then you can like put extra meaning into a similarly pronounced name by using certain characters and symbols there, which is a fun idea.
Yeah. Well, that's the Japanese word games. That's why I enjoy Japanese as a language. I really should just learn at this point, just like entirely, because like a huge part of back in the day when I used to be hardcore into like solving visual novels. I would read all these different visual novels. There was Steins Gate, there was Rewrite, there was Air, there was Little Busters. And a huge part of solving those novels was always just like looking up names and figuring out what kanji they were spelt with and what historical characters they might be referring to, because Japanese love their word games. And yeah, I don't know. Like, I think that's a huge reason why I would want to like pick a new name, because then I could make something like weird and symbolic. And like, I don't know. I like my given name is fine. But like, I think if I'm given a chance to like reinvent myself a little bit, moving to a new country, I'd definitely take it. I think it sounds like fun. Also, Chichen, no, I will not marry you. Just want to have that on record. You've asked at least twice.
Oh, all the way back at the start of stream as well, before you even got here.
I thought so. So at least 3 times.
Oh, alrighty.
No. So I just want to let you know before you sign out.
Well, let's go over here. I'm going to disappear Higurashi away from us.
Okay.
Thank you very much for joining us here on stream today. It's been an absolute pleasure hanging around with you. I look forward to chilling in future. Hopefully we'll be back with the anime next week, depending on if I'm feeling better and we have the time.
And Oberdin and maybe some other games if I can convince Flex to try them out.
Heck yeah.
I know there was some talk in the chat about playing Steps of Brutal, which is another thing. But anyway, we'll talk about that off stream.
Alright.
You all have a good day.
Thank you so much for joining us. We'll
see ya.
see you around.